Hey guys, I don't feel like putting the camera on, but I need to do this stream for myself. Uh, Recently, some issues happened between I and Toronto Bible Study that I feel like I need to talk about because things are escalating. So, let me just say from the very beginning, I didn't expect much from Toronto Bible Study. I knew that eventually we would clash. I've been preparing for it. He's been after my dispensationalism for a long time. And while we were dealing with hyper grace and non-free gracers, there was always this like with him wanting to debate me on dispensationalism. It wasn't until he made a video against dispensationalism that I put out a former post saying, yeah, I'm willing to debate you, even though I'm not prepared. I'm willing to go that route. And so we were in his Discord, I don't know, maybe a week or two ago, and the issue was brought up again, and I was like, if you want to do a formal debate, we'll do a formal debate. He said, we'll do it right here. So we started going down that discussion, and every time we brought up something, he would just say, I don't know, man, that seems like this, that seems like that. And he wouldn't give anything foundational for why he believed dispensationalism was wrong. And this is the issue, okay? And let me show you how it's escalated. So in the midst of that discussion, he started complaining about other interactions that he had in another server between other people that were talking about anti-Semitism. Let me make sure I'm sharing my screen. Yeah, talking about anti-Semitism. Basically, that replacement theology can lead to anti-Semitism. All right, and he went off. He went off on who told you that. You'll see it in a minute. He comments right here, but I tried to bypass the issue and say, okay, fine. Your theology's not anti-Semitic. You're anti-Semitic. And why do I say he's anti-Semitic? Well, there's a couple things. Number one, can I prove he's anti-Semitic? No, I can't prove that someone has hatred in their heart. Okay? Now, sociologically speaking, you have a distinction between prejudice and discrimination. Prejudice is an attitude, and discrimination is a behavior. Okay? So that standard is a little bit easier to prove. But anti-Semitism from a Christian standpoint is a lot more direct, okay? And I can show you a book, and I may just do that. I may show you a book about anti-Semitism so that you understand where I'm coming from. I just don't feel like reading all of that book right now. So 4 days ago, I guess this was, I said, Toronto Bible Study, you have put it in the minds of tons of YouTube and Discord Christians to think a person is a shield. You may claim that calling them that doesn't mean you're not saying they're not saved. However, what it does is cause them to be skeptical of anything a person says. They take it further and say a person is sometimes not saved. You have spread your anti-dispensationalism for too long. And like I said before, I may not be prepared to debate it, but I'm willing to formally debate it. If I lose with a clear conscience that I did my best. Contact SFT or some other platform. And so then the conversation kind of starts, right? And this is where Toronto comes in. This comment is as unhinged as your behavior in the VC the other night. Number one, I was in his Discord. And he didn't even say, he got to a certain point and said, I'm going to mute you. And I said, well, better yet, I'll just leave. And I left the Discord. That was it. It's not my fault he didn't moderate and control the discussion. He says I'm unhinged. Okay, fine. I'm unhinged. I'm hyped because you're bringing accusations against dispensationalism, yet all you're offering me is, I don't know, that seems like this, and it says, apparently I need to have specific objections to your theology or I am anti-Semitic. No, it's not that. The issue is that when you go around calling people shields, when you mix that with the conspiracy stuff, And then whenever you say the things that you do, as well as your whole culture that are involved on Discord, and I'm not going into the screenshot thing, evidence thing. I'm not building a case against you, and I don't care anything about that. You know your attitude. You know the jokes that y'all have in that Discord. All right? You could probably go on Bible Talk podcasts and probably find screenshots of your Discord with that same information because he recorded your Discord. I don't. I don't get into all that gossip stuff. I'm not getting into a lawsuit like you and Saint AVS and all of that type of stuff like that. I just wanted to keep it on the doctrine. But then I was like, okay, fine. Your doctrine is not anti-Semitic. You're anti-Semitic because I'm referring to the specific behaviors that I've seen in you. Now, can I prove that? See, this is the thing. If you limit anti-Semitism to certain behaviors, then you got a problem because that's not how God deals with anti-Semitism and views anti-Semitism. So what do I do here? Do I go into what anti-Semitism is, or do I continue with the thread? I'll continue with the thread, but what this is right now is he's just trying to do the same thing he's done with other YouTubers. He wants to accuse them of slander, and sometimes they have slandered. But me saying he's anti-Semitic in a small group on Discord in his own server after he says that we're accusing him of being anti-Semitism, say no, I think you specifically, your person, not necessarily your doctrine, is anti-Semitic because of this bad mix of the culture that you have within Discord, you know, that you cultivate in the approach. But anyway, he's trying to make it sound like I'm irrational. He's trying to make it sound like I'm doing what the public does, you know. You're a Hitler, you know. He thinks I'm doing that, and that's not what this is about. He says it's your theology, but for some reason you can't prove it. You're the one attacking dispensationalism. What do I need to prove? You can't prove your theology. Keep thinking that. Keep underestimating, see what you get. Just you're not a priority for me. I got other things I have to do. I'll react to your anti-dispensational video. And like I told you, you should go back and study your video wherever I was on your channel talking about eschatology. But if I don't have specific objections, I'm not allowed to speak, and you can hurl accusations, scream at me. I'm not allowed to speak. It's your server. You were controlling all of that. Were you too high? Here's an accusation. Maybe you were too high and too mellow to realize what was going on before that went on. Okay? Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. I can't tell when you're high or when you're not high. I can't tell whether you stopped smoking weed or ever started it. I can only go by the rumors, all right? And you could call it slander or whatever, but I'm just giving you the context. You seemed very mellow in that conversation, and it wasn't until things ramped up to the end that you flip and you want to say, I'm not allowed to speak. You're the owner. You're the moderator. You can mute me at any moment. And you said, I'm going to mute you. And so what did I did? I left because I recognized you weren't offering anything of substance. You're like, I don't know. That seems like to me, you know. And it says hurl accusations and scream at me. After you're constantly done, this is multiple periods of years, at least 2 or 3 years, I think, where we've been constantly ignoring your anti-dispensationalism, okay? But you spread it in other servers and your attacks and all of that stuff, and then you want to try to look like we're the bad guys. He says, I've been asking you to debate this for months. It's been longer than that, actually. And you've done nothing but run. See the accusation he's making? That I'm running from him. Or try to make me jump through hoops. Okay? Well, jump through hoops. I don't have no control over what SFT decides who's on the debate thing. You know? I have no issue with that. Like, contact SFT. So, Toronto, you think you got it better? You debated on SFT. You should know how this goes. Former debates are set up through email typically. I don't see the problem here. And I can't even see my screen if anybody's out there. But my point is that I'm trying to leave this. Hey Jonah, hey Cram. I was trying to leave this. Well, whenever I blow this up, it grows, but I'll try to fix it in a second. You know, this was in a discussion with Discord. He got Axel riled up, and so okay, I left another server. Because they weren't moderating in this issue, and I asked for moderation. They would not provide moderation, and so I left. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of dispensationalism getting attacked more than anything else, even more than free grace, except if your lordship dispensations, and of course you attack free grace. But I'm just sick of it. Everyone's whipping boy. All right? And so he had control of his server. If you're not ready to debate it, why do you freak out at me for not understanding your proofs? I'm not freaking out at you, man. You were not offered nothing substantial. You put me in there. You said, let's debate it right now. Let's do it right now. That's what you were doing. And so that's why I was frustrated. You wanted to elevate it right there. You didn't want to go through formal channels. You wanted to press your view on me and all that stuff. And okay, well, fine. I'll do it just like I do on Mahler and JP and the Black Hebrew Israelites. I'm going to go raw and uncut. You have a choice between a formal debate where we can be academic and professional, or if you want to go gutter, we can go gutter. That's up to you. What are we debating? Then he says this. What are we debating? Whether dispensation is true? I keep asking people to prove it, and no one ever does, including you. No, you keep gaslighting. You want me to debate it because you can't prove it. More usage talk, which will cause people to become more entrenched in your position where they do not even understand. Well, if that's true, how could I convince anybody of a position that I'm not able to convince anybody of a position? That makes no sense. He said, but I'll debate it anyway. It's obvious to me that you're incapable of proving your position. Underestimate me. That's what every opponent regrets they did. You can't even explain your position to someone who is not steeped in your dispensationalism lore. You got a master's of divinity, supposedly, and you can't understand the conversation? When a person can't explain their argument in simple terms, it's usually a good sign they don't know what they're talking about. See, this is more gaslighting. I said, okay, prepare. He goes, prepare for what? We haven't even discussed what we're debating. What is the debate question? You're the one attacking dispensationalism. What do you suggest? He said, how am I attacking dispensationalism? We're going to go to his video and we're going to react to it. And we'll find it. I think we should be able to find it. You're the one. So once again, my behavior, right? You're the one acting like an animal, yelling and freaking out. So I can't talk. He's the one that's got the finger on the trigger. He's the one that controls his own server, Discord. Maybe he was so high hitting the bong that he couldn't get up fast enough to hit the mute button. I don't know. And when I finally get a chance to speak, you run away. I didn't run away. I left your server because it's nonsense. You're not about that life. Now you supposedly contact SFT, but you don't know what we're debating, and you're asking me to narrow down the proposition. He said, maybe we debate your view of Romans 11 or Hebrews 9, but I don't even know your views on those. And I can't talk to you about it because you start freaking out and accusing me of anti-Semitism. You're the supposed expert on dispensationalism. Can you pick a few topics that will allow us to explore some important issues, something that will get to the heart of the matter? I said, you pressed me for an informal debate by saying, let's do it right here. If you don't want raw and uncut, off the dome and off the cuff, then don't press me for an informal debate. Now develop a thesis from those passages you mentioned. You're the one attacking dispensationalism. Are you saying you don't have a developed refutation of the position? Trying to say, look, dude, I don't know why you want to make this into a fight and make me jump through hoops. I can do raw and cut off the dome. I can't have you yelling at the top of your lungs. And maybe you had your mic turned up too much, accusing me of anti-Semitism and not letting me speak. Yeah, because I hijacked his server, guys. Yeah, right. Like, how in the world did I not let him speak in his own server? He's the one with mod controls. Don't try to disguise your deplorable behavior as raw and uncut off the dome. You're acting like a complete fool and you owe me an apology. All right, let's see how I deal with this. As for developing a thesis, I just told you I don't even know what your position is on those verses. He's anti-dispensationalist. Does he not know what dispensationalism is? Again, you're supposedly the expert on dispensationalism. I'm not an expert. That's why I'm not ready to formally debate. You're the one who teaches the theology to thousands of people. Can you not come up with a few possible options for this debate resolution? I've given you some ideas. I truly believe you're anti-Semitic. You made a big issue about people supposedly saying replacement theology is anti-Semitic when I know they said it can lead to that. Because he was trying to make them say replacement theology was anti-Semitic. And they were talking about it can lead to it based on the historical record. I don't apologize for standing up to your hermeneutics of suspicion that he might be a shield mentality and approach. I don't apologize for standing up to your hermeneutics for trying to bully me into a debate before I'm ready. SFT has me debating pre-meal versus all meal mainly. So I was hoping to take out some non-disping lordship along the way. That way we could go deeper in our debate. Yet you want to accuse me of running and having your jump through hoops? So I don't apologize for standing up to your bully tactics. I left your server because we're not compatible. He says, how do you know what they said? Well, now, what is the they that I mentioned? Let's see. Let's see if I mentioned the they anywhere. I don't think I mentioned the they. I said people supposedly saying you made a people supposedly saying, these are people from my camp, that he was accusing them of saying it. And before this had ever happened, I had already had conversations with them. So that's how I knew it. How do you know what they said? You don't even know who I was talking to or what said me. Okay, well, I'll just say that it was in the main Free Grace server. That's all I'll say. You're just lying. See, now I'm lying, guys. So look at this. I'm running, I'm lying, and you can't win with this guy. All right? He comes to you and he accuses you of saying his replacement theology is anti-Semitism, and they say, no, the people were saying it can lead to that. And then he keeps on, and so you say, no, I'm saying you're anti-Semitic. You personally, as an individual. And now he wants proof of that. Well, based on the conspiracy accusations, the slurs, and the other things that you do, those are all anti-Semitic behaviors. You calling people shills, and you seeing conspiracies and every little thing like that. That's what is going on. But can I prove that you have hatred in your heart to the Jews? No, you may be sincere, but sincerely wrong. That's not the issue. The issue is you're trying to shift this from an actual formal debate to me trying to prove that you're anti-Semitic. And that's not what this is about. You don't even know who I was talking to or what they said to me. You're just trying to lying to defend yourself. So I'm lying, guys. I'm deceptive, according to him. You have no grounds to make any such accusation against me. But you don't want to admit you're wrong and apologize. Wrong in what way? Yeah, I disrespected your Discord, but no one was moderating. And so if the moderator don't step in, I'm going to use every bit of my leeway to use. And you were chill. You know, you were chill. You didn't have a problem. It was only whenever I flipped that on you about saying, I'm not saying your doctrine's anti-Semitic. I'm saying you're anti-Semitic. Then you freak out. You have no grounds to make any such accusation of me. Yeah, I mean, hanging out with you for about 2 or 3 years, I think it's been 2 years, whatever, on Discord, I have no grounds of not knowing what you're like. Yeah, whatever. But you don't want to admit you're wrong and apologize, so you're making up a story. Now I'm lying and deceiving just because I don't want to. Guys, this is not how ministry operates. It doesn't. You don't go around saying people are lying and accusing them of all of this stuff. You don't do that. I truly believe he's anti-Semitic. I can't prove it, okay? I can tell you that the things that he does that are anti-Semitic, but it's not like, oh, well, let me build a case file or something like this. This is not Jack Smack's Not Free Grace. That's not what we're doing here. He's, like I said, he's just trying to shift it to this anti-Semitism thing. I'm not going to try to go down that route. Then he says this. Prove whatever you're claiming. You can't. See what he's doing? Instead of dealing with the debate topics, he wants to go into this. He may have been too high to even recognize what was going on. I never tried to bully you in a debate. You were the one who originally proposed a debate between us on dispensationalism. That is not true. He was coming at me about dispensationalism when I was talking about free grace, and even free grace people debating each other. And then that's where he brought that up. And I said, it'll happen eventually. But ever since I agreed to, you've done nothing but run. Okay, you think I ran because I keep a debate schedule and I have higher priorities, and SFT, even though he's not dispensationalist, for whatever reason, he's not promoting you. He's not promoting you in debates. I don't know what you did. Maybe it's because you're so self-sabotaging. Maybe it's because you made the flat earth video. Maybe because you went after GS. You know, you go after everybody, Toronto, and I knew it was a matter of time before you came after me. I knew that, and I've been preparing for that in that sense, psychologically. It still hurts, but I knew that your free grace of believing in Zeus is too far, man, too far. And you know GS don't back you. You started something, and everybody looked to you as a teacher because after the Young Don type stuff, and now you've influenced all these youngsters to act wild on Discord. So, you know, that's what it is. So he says, I never asked you to apologize. I know I didn't say. I was saying I don't apologize. I wasn't saying you were asking me to apologize. I'm saying I don't apologize. Because in my mind, I view it as all the shields. Who are they working for? The conspiracy, how do you say it? Juminati or whatever that people use. That's your right. I'm saying you owe me an apology for calling me anti-Semitic and acting like complete animals screaming and not letting me talk. Well, that's fine. I have no problem apologizing, but I apologize for calling you anti-Semitic, but I truly believe you're anti-Semitic, okay? And you can't change my beliefs, man. You are running and you're trying to make me jump through hoops. Well, maybe you need to exercise. Again, you are the one who originally proposed this debate. Only after you made videos against dispensationalism. But you were the one that originally paid. When I first met you, you were wanting to talk about debating dispensationalism. You're the one who teaches dispensation to thousands of people, but you're not ready to debate it. Because I don't want to, it's hard to defend dispensationalism without going the pre-trib route. And I'm pre-trib. And so I want more time to develop non-pre-trib answers to this. Why are you teaching if you're not ready to defend your views? Now look what he's doing. You're incompetent. I'm incompetent. Okay. You're teaching that. See, this is the same thing he did with all those other guys. So put me in your thumbnail. You're incompetent. You're teaching thousands of people something you don't even understand well enough to debate. Well, keep underestimating me. When I try to ask you a question about it, you freak out and call me. That's the only reason you remember it, because I don't think you were sober. You claim you have some evidence of slanderous charge, but you can't produce it. You're a slanderous liar. Okay. You're right. I can't prove that you were high whenever you interpreted this situation. Would you like to submit a drug test? Send me your urine, maybe a hair follicle or something? I mean, I don't know what you want from me. I said, you accused me of lying. Unless it's about the formal debate, I'm ignoring everything else you're saying. I don't play games like this. And the only reason I'm addressing this is because Axel is all worked up about it. Toronto says, you accused me of anti-Semitism first without proof. You can't prove an attitude of the heart. I'm not using a prejudice discrimination thing. But we'll go into anti-Semitism in a minute. Now, when I ask you for proof, you say you have it but can't produce it. So now when I call you a liar, you're going to cut off conversation? When I call you a liar. Yeah. Because you can't prove your accusation because you're a liar. I'm not lying if I say I believe you're anti-Semitic. I don't need proof to determine my beliefs. I can have unfounded, illogical beliefs. I try to have those in other areas, but I don't have to have the same degree of certainty with every single belief that I have. This is more like an intuition based on your behavior that I've said, and I really wholeheartedly believe you are anti-Semitic. First, I never said I never said I have proof of your anti-Semitism. I said I believe you're anti-Semitic. I can believe what I want about you. Your doctrine leads to anti-Semitism. Your attitude and approach leads to it, but you're trying to distract from the debate. When I first met you, you wanted to debate me. I said I'm not ready. You constantly brought it up. After you made that video against dispensationalism, I made that a post about willing to debate you. I don't have control whether SFT sets a debate up. Quit trying to rewrite history. And I think that was the last of it. So let's go look at the chat. Graham, I've always said it's hateful towards the Hebraic peoples. Jace, did they want the smoke? Hack them like war games. Your friendly hood. Oh, this one's not your friendly hood this time. This is Toronto. Yeah, this is Toronto. But Toronto's just a free grace version of your friendly hood. He claims that's maybe he's lying, deceiving. Covenantal. Yes, I'm a dispensationalist. It seems like most people aren't just intended to only be that way because of anti-Semitism, to be honest. Not sure what that means. It seems... Alright, you're repeating your comment. It's very hard to find a Catholic who doesn't hate G. What's happened? Quad. Remember when the whole Discord had to get scrubbed? Yeah, exactly. Anti-Semitic memes that were being posted without objection. I remember. Yeah. SP doesn't want to be a moderator. He turns it down every time. He didn't like when I said replacement theology is hateful months ago. He said it wasn't. No, I don't want to be a mod. Oh, that's okay. Thanks. Yeah. All right. Who are you talking about? I'm talking about Toronto Bible Study. Can you send a StreamYard link? No. Even though I'm not anti-Semitic. We rest not. Okay. Satan is accuser, brethren. He needs a help. No help. He needs plenty. What are you, SP? I'm against SFT ever since I heard him teach the backloaded reprobation doctrine. He teaches it a little bit different way, though. All right, they're asking about the little season thing. No, SP believes TikTok predators conspiracy called Little Season. I've never heard of Seasonist. Interested on the pre-trib thing. I'm pre-trib, but it ranks really low on the priorities for me. I don't think it's that important to dispensationalism. Yeah, I mean, my point is, Chris, is that I don't want to debate against a non-dispensationalist because they're just without knowing the other views to defend in different ways than just using pre-trib arguments. I want to use other arguments that appeal to other people that are non-pre-trib. I don't want to see Charles and Mike fall out. Well, it's inevitable because he goes after everybody. So I'm just speeding up what should have been done a long time ago. Believes the kingdom already happened and we're in a period of time. China's always seemed pretty rigid and not interested in fellowship to me. Yeah, that's exactly right. He's just toxic. There's no fellowship with him. Yeah, that's why I said incompatible. Just seems bitter and envious. No one is qualified to teach except him. Everyone's more successful because they're a shield, etc. And to be honest, saying that is the dumbest saying of free grace is. Yeah, I don't say that. Unfriendlyhood is. I mean, well, leads. It depends. When you say leads, that means logically leads. Not everybody follows the logic to the same extent. In my opinion, pre-mill is the easiest way to defend free grace. I am to defend free grace best with that framework. I suspect so, Cram. You just didn't share a link tonight. What's going on? Is this in StreamYard? Yes, it's in StreamYard. I wasn't really gonna open the room. I just don't think, and not unless people wanted to come in. I just wanted to say this stuff because me and Axel had words about it, and I left the Pennsylvania server because those guys weren't trying to moderate the the conversation, and I can't be in a Discord when it's just going to drain my energy trying to deal with those. If you want soapy arguments or focused tribulation, check out Walbert's Millennial Kingdom. Okay. I wouldn't be able to understand what the framework, anti-Semitism. Okay, so I guess I'll go ahead and I'm going to show you all this book. It's an older book. Let's see. We're just going to look at the structure of the argument. I haven't looked at it in a while. Hold on. Complete lesson. Publications. Ebooks. PDFs. All right. All right, so this is older, guys. To Jewish friends, old and new, this volume is respectfully, affectionately dedicated. Barry Goldwater, gentleman, officer, statesman, with whom it was a pleasure to serve in wartime years. Dr. Charles Feinberg, Hebrew scholar and professor who made the original language of the Old Testament so alive in the classroom that exegesis became my way of life. So look at the structure. Dedication, introduction, Middle East crucible, focus on the Middle East, biblical perspectives on the Middle East crisis, future crisis in the Middle East, current, the source of anti-Semitism. This is where we're going to focus in on. Anti-Semitism defined. But let me... All right. So there's a lot about this. So this was originally published in 1974. I'm looking for that section. The source of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism defined. Anti-Semitism is opposition to, prejudice against, or intolerance of the Jewish people. However, the term Semite encompasses much more than just the Jews. Jews are but one branch of the Semitic peoples, which includes the ancient Assyrians, Mennonites, Chaldeans, Moabites, Edomites, Ammonites, as well as the present Arabs, Syrians, Armenians, a considerable portion of the people of Ethiopia and of the Middle East in general. To be accurate, therefore, anti-Semitism should be defined as opposition to all Semites. Yet, such is not the case. Jews alone are the target for anti-Semitism, which may run the gamut for antipathy to violent hatred. Since most people understand anti-Semitism to be the terrible evil of anti-Jewish sentiment and action which has plagued history, I will continue to use the word in the dictionary sense to refer only to the Jews. Historical perspectives of anti-Semitism. The venom that renders masses of people susceptible to anti-Jewish agitation is more than fear, distrust, prejudice, insecurity, or envy. This vicious hatred reflects the angelic conflict and Satan's subsequent machinations to defeat the plan of God. No matter how non-spiritual he may be, the Jew is the center of the very real spiritual warfare, the angelic conflict. So he's talking about the angels and all of that. The origin of the Jews. The clause condemning anti-Semitism, that's the Genesis 12:3 right there. Historical ramifications of it. Anti-Semitism in history, the Maccabites, Balaam, the Assyrians. Let me just type in replacement. Okay, they don't even use the word that. But so when I'm talking about someone being anti-Semitic, I mean they're underneath the influence of this type of mentality. That is, if you are not a dispensationalist to an extent, you're anti-Semitic. And what I mean by that is you hate the plan of God's biblical covenants. So I know this is going to open up a can of worms, but I'm sick of it. You know, maybe I need to be radical in this particular area because everybody else that's against us is radical. So maybe I need to be known as a Jew lover. Maybe I need to be taking it to an extreme. I feel like that in my debates with other people that I would personally consider anti-Semitic, even though they have ministry to Jews and stuff, I feel like in those debates I was restrained. I was held back because they were pastors, even though their doctrine is anti-Semitic, whether they individually are anti-Semitic or not. But here's the thing: when you're talking about Toronto, you're not just talking about his doctrine being anti-Semitic. You're talking about his approach, how he handles people, how he deals with them in every single way. You know, the memes that were just mentioned and all that type of stuff that was going on. And I don't care. You know, we could have dealt with this. I would do so. Let's see. Hold on. There's some more comments. Dispensationalism is a nice, in my knowledge, the Holocaust denial stuff is pretty sketchy. Go what? Yeah, 60s SP. Think turns. Okay, so they're talking about sociology. How do I talk to Charles on the live one day? I hope to be able to talk to him live. That's my dream. Just pull up the stream right now. Just understand, I don't have much energy. So for the record, I don't have proof that Toronto is anti-Semitic, but I do believe he's anti-Semitic. And I believe that his continual attitude and behavior and the way he teaches on Discord and on YouTube is just going to continually to foster that same thing. All right, so I don't know what hyper grace are. So I got videos: Free Grace versus Hyper Grace Wars. I take it Hyper Grace. Yeah, the Hyper Grace is the new one. And so, Chris, Hyper Grace is somebody that claims to be free grace, but they are borrowing from some other system. Hey, Jonah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yo, no way. I've always wanted to be on here. I finally figured it out.
Cool. I'm glad you're here. Sorry you're here underneath such dire stream, but anyway.
It's okay, bro. It happens. I understand. What's I know I've been texting in the things. What's hyper grace and hybrid grace? Could you break that down like in simple terms, kind of like?
Well, it's a good question. We got a continuum that we're developing to try to bring forth those distinctions. For the sake of YouTube, when you see hyper grace, they're either gonna be people that are attacking free grace, or they're going beyond free grace. And so the trend is that there's a particular teacher named David Benjamin, and David Benjamin has to put it lightly, a low view of the gospel. I mean, the book of James. Okay.
Yeah.
And so his followers call free gracers antinomians. They call them all the things that you could say about a lordship person, they say about us. And so that's one extreme. But usually it relates to not confessing sin, God doesn't discipline, and rewards sometimes. Those are the main issues.
Okay, gotcha. I'm gonna have to look into that. Do you have other videos on that?
Yeah, we got the free grace versus hyper grace wars videos where we go into some of that.
Yeah, I'll have to check those out.
Yeah,
that Jody Dillo book, that's a really good book. I gotta finish that soon. I'm almost done with it.
How did you find out about that book?
I found out about it because probably like 4 or 5 years ago, I really got into Tony Evans, his preaching, and so I would read everything by Tony Evans. And in one of his books, it's like, if you want to be a pastor, books that you should read, and it's one of the books that he recommends is that book. So I was like buying and reading all the books that Tony Evans would recommend, and that was one of the books that he recommended. So I got
That's
it.
interesting.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, so I feel like he must have read it or something. But yeah.
Oh yeah, he has. Yeah, he's read it. No doubt.
Yeah, so it's one that I think he recommends in in one of his books about like being a pastor and studying. So that's how I found it, and I've been telling people about it, and I'm like, to me it makes sense. Like it helps, because I've always been like free grace, like just the simplicity of the gospel, like just believe in the finished work and stuff. But there was always those passages that were like really hard sometimes for me to like understand, that I wrestled with. Like I felt like the Bible was like contradicting itself or something. So when I found that, and like it just really helped me understand, I felt like a better perspective, in my opinion,
Yeah. Well, let me address this real quick. Real truth. The argument goes like this: truth is of God, falsehoods of Satan. If you're not in the truth, you're satanic. Anti-Semitism is just another word for Satanism. False doctrine is just another flavor of Satanism. If free grace is true, then everything else is satanic to one degree or another. Same thing with dispensationalism. All right, go ahead. What else you want to talk about, Jonah?
Oh yeah. No, I appreciate what you're doing, and I've been following you, and I'm trying to learn more. I like the way that you debate people. I think you're funny, and I think you do a good job. So I don't know. What do you think about
which debates have you seen?
I seen the one with Rogue Calvinist.
Okay.
And I watched that one. I just thought it was kind of funny. But
okay.
I like the way that you like set things up on the screen, like so you can see it.
Uh-huh.
So yeah. But I just found you like I don't know, like a couple weeks ago or so. But yeah, I'm gonna try to follow your stuff, and I think you get more following probably soon. I feel like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, this could go both ways, because like this guy's saying, bro, come on, you don't have any evidence of them being anti-Semitic, but you openly accuse them of being that. Why? Well, here's the problem. You can't accuse Hitler of being anti-Semitic. Technically, you can't see into Hitler's heart. You don't know whether Hitler was deceived into thinking that he actually believed the things that he was saying were true. To prove that Hitler had hate in his heart, we can't necessarily prove that. We're not omniscient. Yeah, I believe that Hitler had hatred in his heart. But so the point is, they're asking for something you can have an impossible evidence for. Now, what they want is documentation. They want receipts. But that's just shifting the discussion. It's not about that. It's about the debate about dispensationalism, and then him attacking us for saying that we were saying that his beliefs lead to anti-Semitism. And so I'm like, okay, your beliefs are not anti-Semitic, but you are anti-Semitic based on the stuff that I've seen y'all do in your Discord, you know? But no, I don't have proof of that. I don't go around keeping track of every screenshot to use against somebody in a Discord.
Is he like
but no one can say
replacement?
I haven't. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You ever heard of Andy Woods?
Yeah, he's the president of the seminary I attend.
Oh, really? Yeah, I've been watching his YouTube series against Calvinism or whatever.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
that's really good stuff. So I've been almost watch all of them. So yeah, I've been watching this stuff too.
Yeah. I wish I wouldn't even have to say some of these things, but sometimes you have to deal with things whenever they come at you, you know? And so
yeah, bro. You're doing good, Charles. I just wanted to encourage you, bro. You keep up the good work, man. I'm gonna get off here. Got church tomorrow, but you keep up the good work. Don't let the haters get to you, man.
All right, man. God bless.
The Lord's work. God bless you too, bro. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Hey, Ashley, I'm glad you're feeling a little bit better. Thank you, Real Truth. Super ironic. No one called motivated, but yeah, that's true. And it's like, why, you know, we're doing this blood in, blood out style. Let's see. We're doing this blood in, blood out style. You know, Toronto takes out all these other guys, and then I'm left standing with him, and then we turn on each other, right? Is that what we're doing? Yeah. Well, that may be so, but you're gonna see Toronto is not much better. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but here's the thing, Real Truth. I'm not in that category. I know what I'm talking about. And see, the thing is, Toronto's making the claim, I don't have proof. I don't need proof in this area. Thanks, Ashley. I don't need proof, you know? But let's go find some proof, right? Let's go see what... I don't even have the energy to do this. I got to do something, though. Not how I wanted to spend my Saturday. All right, let's just go on his YouTube channel. Let's just type in Toronto Bible and dispensationalism. Four months ago. Okay, so you got against dispensationalism, Gene Kim. Gene Kim's not even a dispensationalist. You got 4 months ago, dispensationalist versus replacement theology. Dispensationalism, what's up with that? 5 months ago, here. So, all right, so let's go ahead and let's just do an easy cook on them. Just whatever reaction comes to my mind, that's what we'll deal with here. Let me put this in real size. All right. Sorry, I'm not going to put my camera. I just don't have the energy.
Thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart, for thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. And David said, What have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another, and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner.
Yeah, but Quad, I don't want to go that route. I'm not trying to prove he's an anti-Semitic by doing screenshots. My point is, it's a combination. It's his bad doctrine, his bad attitude, and the way that he approaches people, man. And so, you know, the title of this stream is "What Do I Do About This?" You know, I'm in a tight spot because I mean, I got to be objective, all right? You know, I got the emotions out. I got to be objective. So let me do my best to try to be objective, okay? Let me try. I'm going to share my screen so I can draw, because drawing helps me get my thoughts together. So let me see. One thing I try to do, and it's difficult to do, is I try to be consistent. All right, consistent. Now, consistency could show up in different ways, and it could be argued for different ways. But here's what I'm thinking right now. I want to. Jack Smack's gonna love this, but I'm gonna reevaluate this. So one of my accusations against Jack Smack, right, is he claims, or let's just use the language I use, believes certain people are not saved. Now he's looking for proof, or he's looking for a standard. Believes certain people are not saved. All right. And, you know, whether that be Young Don or other thing like that. And what I've said is Toronto, I believe that he's anti-Semitic. Now, of course, the context for that was that he was trying to defend his doctrine and supposedly the attack, and I was trying to reshift it to the individual thing, and that's why I said that. But then he took it to YouTube underneath the comment posts. So that was not what I didn't mention anything about anti-Semitic in the original post. But okay. So I have no proof. Jack Smack has no proof. So dang, this sucks. So here's the thing. I can't call Toronto anti-Semitic, even though I believe that he is, because I can't prove it. Not in the standard of all of this. But he's trying to say I'm making accusations. I was talking to in his private Discord, and it would have went no further than that. He's the one that brought it up in the chat and escalated it. So what I'll do is I'll eat this and I'll say, okay, I'm wrong for calling you anti-Semitic, even though I believe you are anti-Semitic. And I cannot prove that you're anti-Semitic. Okay? Does that make that clear, everybody? Now that that's said, let's go into the actual video and let's see how he demolishes dispensationalism.
And when the words were heard which David spake, said Philistine, I will give thy flesh. But Saul saw David go forth against Jesse the Bethlehemite.
Our investigation here, right? And we can talk about some of the key. Hey, Real Truth, what's up, bro? Hey, boys, God bless you, brother. Thanks for joining. So we talk about some of the key scriptures that they discuss, right, and see what we think of these things. Okay. So what's the real difference between the dispensationalists and us? Well, the first thing is that.
So he's saying he knows the difference between dispensationalists and covenant theology, Let's see. So we're going to hear the first distinction.
I mean, not us, but okay. What is dispensationalism? Dispensationalism, they teach that there's these different periods in history, and God deals with people in a different.
No, absolutely not. First off, he's going with these typical things. A dispensationalist, he's just using a general thing. Oh, well, they teach periods of time and all of this, and that's what it is. No, that's not the definition of dispensationalism. Let me think. What resource should I use that defines dispensationalism as a theology? Dispensationalism defined. I'll pull up those sources later.
Different way in those different periods. Okay, so they call them dispensations. These periods are called dispensations, and God deals with people differently in those dispensations. So let me see if I can. Oh shoot, my Bible's closed. Hang on.
So he's not dealing with a dispensational theology. He's just saying a dispensationalist recognize these periods, but that's not distinguished of dispensationalists. Covenant theologians have covenants and dispensations in their works. So that's not what makes you a dispensationalist.
So basically, so also the other big thing with them is that they think that the promises to Israel in the Old Testament, like the promises of land and stuff like that, that those are all going to be they're going to literally come true in the future, in the end times. Okay, and that's why they believe that there's going to be this millennial reign of.
Okay, well then, what you think they're figuratively came true?
Christ, and that's going to be like the restoring the kingdom to Israel. That's what when it says, sometimes they'll say like, okay, let me show you. Right. The way that God interacts with people at different times. That's right. So it's supposedly he deals with people in a different way in different periods of time, right? Now some of them will go as far as to say that, it's faith alone in the New Testament, but back then it was.
Those are not dispensationalists.
It was like faith plus works, in the Old Testament. So some of them will go as far as to say that. Most of them won't go there. Like the classic idea was that salvation is always by faith alone, but that but the main difference with them before was that they just believed that there was going to be this millennial kingdom and that all the promises to Israel are fulfilled in Israel and they're not for the church. And the classic understanding of most Christians throughout church history has been that, no, the promises to Israel are actually transferred to the church. And that's how we should.
And so he's going to go with history here. Well, history was also premillennial first, and there's a book, Discovering Dispensationalism, that gives historical arguments for dispensational distinctives existing within the church early on.
We should understand that. I'm not going to tell you what to believe right now because I don't even know personally what I believe. I'm back and forth on this. For the most,
he says he's back and forth on this, all right, but he's not. He clearly he says anti-Semitic things all the time. He's not back and forth.
Or I reject dispensationalism. I don't think there's a special. I don't think the thing is they have different views, they have different beliefs, different dispensationalists, right? So some of them will say like God is going to save the Jews, and so somehow he's just going to make them believe or something like that. But that to me seems weird, right? So I don't see why would.
See that, guys? He thinks, oh, well, God's going to somehow save the Jews, like make believe. So he's making it sound like we're Calvinists or something at that point. No, they believe the gospel just like we believe the gospel. God just knows that there's going to be at least 144,000. Why
would he do that for them? Like, why would he do that, right? So that's extreme. Other people will say, no, he's not going to make them believe. But those that believe, they'll be saved, and then they'll receive the kingdom. They'll receive all the promises that were meant for them. They'll receive it in the end times, which is possible too. So I'm not going to reject the whole thing, but I do think it's some of the things are a little bit weird. Okay, Real Truth 77. In my opinion, dispensationalism is, in the very least.
Now, a long time ago, he wanted to debate me on dispensationalism. All right, when I first met him, that was a long time ago, and so this video is recent, 5 months ago, and there you are.
Somewhat true, but the hyper dispensationalist claiming that salvation used to be by works in the OT is just false. Yeah, I think I agree with you that's certainly false, that part, right? But then it's like, why do we accept the rest of it? Well, you might be right. This faith plus works thing is a Ruckmanite thing, like Angela's saying here. So this guy, I think his name is David Ruckman or something like that. Ruckman, anyway. The guy was like this preacher from the South.
Peter, I think.
But he's well educated. He got a PhD from Bob Jones University. So he was well educated, right? And he wrote a lot of books and he was very influential. And he taught the people that thing. Yeah, Abraham is saved by faith. Yeah, exactly. We learned that in the New Testament that Abraham is saved by faith, Romans 4. So it seems to be pretty obvious that salvation is by faith alone, no matter when. But we'll look into this. Like I said, I certainly disagree with that idea. But anyway, look what the disciples are saying with them. So this is Acts chapter 1, right before Jesus goes into heaven. The disciples asked him, Lord, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? Okay, so that's what they believe. Just like in the Old Testament where it says that the Messiah is going to come back and give them the kingdom and give them the land and all the promises that they had. This is what the disciples expected Jesus to do. And this is right before he leaves. So they still expected him to restore the kingdom. But he says, no, it's not for you to know the times of the seasons, which the Father has put in his own power. But you shall receive power after that the Holy Ghost is come upon you. And you shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and unto the uttermost part of the earth. So he's sending them out now to preach the gospel, to build the church. And they thought he was going to restore the kingdom right then. But no, he says, no, this is what's going to happen. You're going to go preach to the uttermost parts of the earth. And when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. And then while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, two men stood by them in white apparel, which also said, ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in like manner as you have seen him go into heaven. So he's going to come just like he left. He left in a cloud, he's going to come back in a cloud, right? And Jesus does say that. And we see that in several scriptures, so we can take a look at those as well. Let me see some comments here. Is Calvary the major stream of Christianity that promotes this? Calvary Chapel? What do you mean? Now, dispensationalism is mostly found among like Baptists in the American South. That's mostly where it is. It originated in England with these people called the Plymouth Brethren, and I forget the name. Oh, the guy's name is Darby. He came up with it, and then but it became very popular in the American South because
he systematized it. He didn't come up with it.
This one guy who was a big supporter of it, he ended up producing all these Bibles called the Scofield Reference Bible. This guy Scofield, he produced these Bibles, and those Bibles, which were like Bibles with notes, with like reading notes to explain things, those Bibles were well distributed all across the South. So a lot of people started reading the Scofield Reference Bible and learning about dispensationalism, and that's why those ideas became very popular. So nowadays, almost everybody, if you think about Christianity or you hear about Christianity, most people think that there's this beast is going to come, there's going to be a 7-year tribulation, there's going to be a temple in Jerusalem, or what. They hear all these different things, all these stories like that, right? But for the most part of Christian history, that hasn't been the case.
All these stories. He's going for a history. For the most part, well, what do you believe, Toronto?
The church has not believed this, Now, that's not a reason to accept or reject the doctrine, but it's like a reason to think that it's like it reduces their credibility. The fact that throughout most of the church's history, no one accepted this view. That's kind of weird, right? But it might be that
it reduces their credibility. Most people didn't believe in free grace, but he wouldn't say that would reduce their credibility. He's being very selective here.
Something else happened, I mean, free grace is also like that, right? We believe that the early church taught free grace, but that most of the church history they didn't. So we're kind of like that. And a lot of free graces are dispensationalists, so you might say something like that. But I doubt it. But anyway, let's think about this. So, all right, where can we start here? So the big thing with them is they call what they do a literal reading of scripture. Okay. So by that they mean that we're going to read the scripture and we're going to interpret it. We're not going to like turn it into some metaphor or something that just say, oh, it's a metaphor. It's not really saying that. They're just going to take it literally for what it is. So for example, if you see Ezekiel 37, hang on. Okay, this is actually, I mean, I don't know if I read this whole chapter, but in this chapter, he basically says that he's going to give back the land to them. Right? Let me see where this is. The hand of the Lord was upon me, and caused me to pass around about, and the dry bones, the valley of the dry bones. This is, prophesy upon these bones, and say to them, oh, you dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. So the Lord God is going to, behold, I will cause breath to enter into you, and you shall live. Like the dry bones, it's like a graveyard type of situation, right? A bunch of dead skeletons on the ground. It's a vision he's having a vision, okay? In a valley of dry bones. And then God is causing them to become flesh again. I will lay sinews upon you, I will bring up flesh upon you, cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and you shall live. And you shall know that I am the Lord. So he prophesied that. And then the flesh came upon them. Now, where's this thing about? Okay, therefore prophesy and say unto them, thus saith the Lord God, behold, O my people, I will open your graves and cause you to come up out of your graves and bring you into the land of Israel. And you shall know that I am the Lord. When I have opened your graves, O my people, and brought you up out of your graves, I shall put my spirit in you, and you shall live, and I shall place you in your own land. Then shall you know that I, the Lord, have spoken it and performed it, saith the Lord. And so he's basically saying he's going to bring them up out of their graves and put them back in the land, right? The land being Israel, right? So he's going to give them the land. That's why people take this. They say if we read this literally, then that's what he's going to do, right? He's going to raise up these people, Israel, and because he says, "Oh, my people," and Ezekiel.
What he's doing here, he literal includes figurative speech. So raising you from your graves doesn't necessarily mean they're physically dead.
He's talking to the Jews, right? He's not talking to Gentiles. So when he says, "Oh, my people, I will raise you up and bring you back into the land," people take that. If you're going to take that literally, that means that he's going to give them back the land. So that's how they see that. So okay, Real Truth 77 says, I believe that in the tribulation, God is going to humble the Jews, and Israel will come to faith. So this is kind of like that idea I was saying, that a lot of people believe that. I mean, I'm not saying Real Truth is necessarily saying this, but it sounds like it kind of, right? Where people sometimes argue that God's going to kind of make them believe or something like that, Which
see what I mean? Look at this assumption. He's assuming that people are Calvinists in the tribulation or something.
I don't think that's what Real Truth is saying here, but what he's saying is that basically in the tribulation, they're going to be so humbled by the tribulation, by all the horrible things happening to them in the tribulation, that they're just going to be like, whoa, wow, this is great. God is real and it is Jesus, and they're just going to believe, and then they're going to be saved. That's what he's suggesting. And of course, some of them probably won't, right? Some of them, just even with all that stuff, they still won't believe, and then they'll go to hell. But most of them, or many of them, will get saved. And so that's what the Ezekiel prophecy is about, right? That's what Real Truth 77 is saying. Oh, Calvary Chapel? No. They're not dispensational. I don't think they are. Maybe. I don't think so, but maybe. It's weird because nowadays, like I say, back in the day, almost nobody believed it, but nowadays, like more and more people are kind of into it because of the Scofield Reference Bible. It just became this.
It's the minority position. You think it's so popular, but it's not. Amillennialism is the majority position in Christianity.
Popular belief about Christianity, but like none of the Protestant denominations teach that, not even one. So if you go to the Anglican Church or the Lutherans or whatever, they don't teach that, right? And also the Catholics obviously don't, right? And the Orthodox don't. And then among the Protestants, there was one group, basically the Baptists, that picked up on this, or not? It was those guys, the Plymouth Brethren. Okay, they're the ones that invented it, kind of, and then other people started picking up on it.
You see that? Invented it. You see what he's saying? That dispensationalism was invented. You know, it wasn't invented.
Most of those people were Baptists. Okay, so that's who most of the people that believe it are Baptists. Now, Calvary Chapel, they might be Baptists, so they might be dispensationalists. I really don't know. Oh, Broders is saying, yeah, he does think that. So maybe they are. I don't know. I don't know too much about that, to be honest. You know. And then Angelo says, yeah, sometimes problems with that turns into hyperliteral, where I literally heard hyper-disp turn parables into doctrine, or trying to interpret doctrine. Yeah, that's the thing. So they'll have to become hyper-literal. You know, that's the thing about it. That's what's weird about it. Like if you look at this prophecy here, right? Okay, let's say. I mean, I guess I can see how they might think that God is going to like restore the Jews and then give them the land, but that's not what most dispensationalists believe. This is what this thing is saying, is that he's going to bring them out of their graves and give them the land, right? But most dispensationalists, they don't think that. They think it's going to be like that he's going to give the land to the people that are still alive now, you know? But maybe they'll say, oh, he's going to resurrect everyone who was saved, right? They all get resurrected, and then the Jewish ones who got resurrected, the Jewish ones who were saved, they'll get the land. Maybe that's what they're arguing. I'm not too sure, but that's that. Okay, that's what they say about that. In my experience, they're Calvinists. Oh, is that true? I heard something like that. Yeah, Calvary Chapel's Calvinist. I don't know too much about them, you know. But yeah, like Broders is saying, Jabesh, it's actually the opposite. So it's the so-called. So the other thing for dispensationalism, the other one is called covenant theology. Okay, and that's the kind of most people have believed so-called covenant theology throughout most of the church's history. So in that view, it's like, but that's a weird view too. So I'm not saying I support covenant theology either. I'm just saying I mean, I think maybe they're both kind of wrong, or they're somewhere in the middle. We could find the truth, you know. Because the covenant theology people, they'll just completely deny the idea of tribulation, or the idea that like there's going to be a millennial kingdom of Jesus, like 1,000-year reign, all those things, right? Which is in Revelation 20. So they think all that's just symbolic or allegorical or whatever you want to call it. So that's why I'm not sure about that. Maybe it does sound a little bit strange that would be just an allegory, you know? Can I hop on the show? Just go, yeah, okay. Come on. We're just chilling, talking, trying to learn. Okay, so anyway, so that's the idea with Ezekiel 37. They think that that's literally going to happen to the Jews. It's referring to Jews and Jews only, or Israel or Israelites or something like that, and so they're going to receive that. But in
Okay, real truth.
Ezekiel, he's talking to the Jews. He's not talking to the Israelites, right? Because by the time of Ezekiel, the northern tribes have been already taken away to Babylon. So that's the other thing that's weird about it too, because they'll try to say, or the dispensationalists will say that all the tribes are going to come back, or some of them will say that. So that's the other thing. It's confusing, you know, because some of them will say it's only for Jews today, Jews like the tribe of Judah or whatever, Benjamin. But then others will say that no, it's all the Jews. Because if you look in Revelation chapter 7, what happens? So John is seeing this vision, right? And then he sees this thing where there were these people sealed. Oh, here's Real Truth. Hey, what's up, Real Truth?
Yo, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up? All right, so you're gonna talk to me about dispensationalism? Are you kind of an expert on it or what?
Oh no, I'm not like an expert on it, man. I'm just like learning stuff, you know. So I think earlier I was having this like comment discussion with you on like I think it was Matthew 24.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you remember, right? About how because my personal view is that Matthew 24 isn't necessarily for the church,
right?
You know, and how I think it mainly applies to the Jewish people during the tribulation, you know, because I think one of the scriptures that they use is Jeremiah 37.
Okay.
Let me just pull that one up, where it talks about like Jacob's trouble.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go there. We can go there. That's another weird thing. Like, I don't know. They take out these one lines and stuff, and they make this big thing out of it. But
yeah,
anyway,
so it talks about it says, "Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it, even the time of Jacob's trouble. But he shall be saved out of it." So, like the way that they interpret it, it's basically like the tribulation, right? That day is great, and it's for Jacob, it's for Israel, and it says that they're going to be saved from it. You know?
Yeah, I know. But it's always like with the saved, in the Old Testament, when the people are saved, right? It's always like a remnant, right? So I guess some dispensationalists say that it's like only the Jews that believe they'll be saved.
Well, I'm not saying I'm not saying like every single Jewish person is going to be saved. I'm just saying that there's going to be a future generation of Jews that does come to faith. You know, like unlike the Pharisees who rejected Christ during his earthly ministry, like in the future, there's going to be a generation that does come to faith, and they're going to help evangelize. Now, I'm not saying every single one of them is going to get saved. There's going to be some people that are not going to get saved, and I think that's what Matthew 24 is talking about with the parable of the evil servant. It's going to be talking about the ones that don't get saved, and they're going to get destroyed basically when Jesus comes back.
Right. You know what the problem is? When you talk about dispensationalism, and this is the problem for me trying to figure it out. It's like it ends up jumping all over the Bible. Like we've just jumped all over the Bible, right? And it's like, oh, this little thing here says this, so maybe this is what it's talking about. You know, it's just very confusing, and maybe it's possible, but it seems a little bit strange. Like, okay, so for example, look at this thing, right? This thing says, I heard the number of them which were sealed, and so it's like the 144,000, 12,000 from each tribe: Judah, Asher, Simeon, Zabulon, each tribe, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we would see with like Jacob. If you say Jacob's trouble, right? Jacob is the one who is the father of all those 12 tribes, right? It's not just Judah, right? So, but they're not all Jews, right? Jews are the people from Judah, you know, or Judea.
People just call them Jews nowadays, but
yeah. So there's
promise of Israel.
That problem where people will say, oh, the Jews are going to get all this stuff, but this is not talking about Jews. This is talking about each of the tribes, and those 10 tribes, those other 10 tribes, like so in the south kingdom of Judea, there was the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, and there was a lot of Levites, but all the other tribes, they were in the north, and they all got taken away to Syria, and nobody knows where they are anymore. They're just gone, you know. So why doesn't, if it's Jacob's trouble, who's Jacob? Is it them too, or is it just only the Jews? You know what I mean? So that's another weird thing about it.
Well, people like interpret it that it's just referring to like the nation of Israel, like Israel corporately, not like, well, I don't know. To be honest, I'm not an expert either, man.
No, it's okay. It's okay. But yeah, that's another thing. So that's, I'm not expecting you to be an expert, but I'm just going to explain to you some of the problems I have with this worldview or this way of seeing it. Jeremiah 37, what again?
It was Jeremiah 37, I believe.
What's the verse number?
It's verse 7, Jeremiah 30.
Oh, 30 verse 7. Huh?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. All right. Let's read this from the beginning. Let's think about this. The word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord, saying, Thus speaketh the Lord God of Israel, saying, Write thee all the words that I have spoken unto thee in a book. For lo, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will bring again the captivity of my people, Israel and Judah, saith the Lord. And I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. So at this point, Jeremiah is still, he's writing before they were taken away to Babylon, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when it says that I will bring again the captivity of my people, Israel and Judah, it doesn't sound like, but then he's talking about Israel and Judah. So the Judah, those are people that are going to go to Babylon. The Israel, they were already taken away to Assyria. They're already, by the time Jeremiah writes this, Israel is already gone. Okay. So, okay, maybe this does include Israel and Judah. Let's keep going. I'll cause them to return to the land that I gave their fathers, and they shall possess it. And these are the words that the Lord spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah. For thus saith the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Wait, what's going on here? These are the words that the Lord spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah. So concerning both kingdoms, right? For thus saith the Lord, we have heard a voice of trembling and of fear, and not of peace. Ask ye now and see whether a man does travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. So he's saying the men are like, they're scared almost to the point of a woman when she's having a baby. They're like that scared, you know?
I'm waiting for this refutation of dispensationalism. I haven't heard it yet.
And then alas, for that day's great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's troubles, but he shall be saved out of it. Which shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord of hosts, I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and I will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves with him. So he's saying that, okay, there's some kind of yoke on their neck, but they shall serve the Lord their God and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. So this is what people, I mean, traditionally people have understood this to mean Jesus, right?
Yes.
And then, therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith the Lord, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. I don't know. So yeah, I guess so that's the idea. Like, so the conflict here is that some people read this as saying literally, okay, he's going to give Jacob back the land. But that's what it says, literally, quote unquote. And other people say, no, that's talking about the church.
Well, here's what I think. So first of all, like, I do not believe that the church replaces Israel.
The church is not mentioned in the Old Testament.
Like, I know that some people hold to that view that, oh, the church is now the new Israel or whatever. Israel is now the church and Israel is just abandoned. But I don't believe that. I don't know if the Bible like teaches that. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
I think that a
you
lot
want
of
to see where you want to take a look at the other side of the argument a little bit. Why do people say that Israel and the church are now the same? They usually start here in Ephesians 2. For he is our peace.
Like with how God reconciles him.
That shows that Israel and the Gentiles are on equal footing concerning inheritance, not that they're the same.
How there is no difference whether Jew or Gentile, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's true. Like, I think that both Jews and Gentiles can become a part of the church, you know, but we need to remember is that the kingdom, like the actual kingdom that's going to come down, it's going to come through Israel and it's going to be in Israel, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where the distinction has to be made. So like, I believe that when the kingdom comes is when Israel comes to faith, you know, because I believe that during the synoptic gospels.
I got this at 2 times the speed and it's still not fast enough.
When Jesus preached the gospel of the kingdom, repent for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. You know, he was quite literally offering them the kingdom there.
Yeah, I get
you know, he's the king. The kingdom is here. It's at the hand of whom? At the hand of Christ. He's literally offering them the kingdom.
See, this is the thing. Toronto will nod his head in agreement, and then as soon as someone comes in with a different view, he changes it up. I've seen him do it. I've been in a stream with him when he's done it. And so that's my issue. He brings all this accusations against dispensationalism, but when you press him on him, he doesn't actually bring anything except, I don't know, man. That seems like you know,
like if Israel would have like repented nationally, and if they would have like come to faith, like we would be in the kingdom right now. Maybe that's like the dispensationalist view, like I think Andy Woods type of view, you know.
Yeah.
But obviously that didn't. Like,
I agree with that.
They rejected Christ, right?
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree that when Jesus says like, repent for the kingdom is at hand, Mark 1:15 or whatever, something like that, right? That he's saying that the kingdom of God can be in their grasp. If they had made him the king, then they would have had the kingdom, right? But instead they crucified him, and so it goes to the Gentiles, right? But then the idea that now they're just like us or something, or I don't even know, or I guess I don't know. So okay, what are you saying about this then? To Ephesians 2:14, for he is our peace, who has made both one, and has broken down the middle wall of partition between us. So you're just saying that this is just about the church. So the Jews and the Gentiles are the church.
Like anyone can be a part of the church, whether Jew or Gentile. Like there is no difference. Everyone has fallen short of the glory of God, and if they put their faith in Christ alone without their works, then they can become a part of the church, right? Mm-hmm. And here's the thing: is that in Matthew,
they're no more strangers and foreigners, but they're fellow citizens with the saints of the household of God. Like this is just the church. This is not saying that they're part of Israel or something. You know, they're no more strangers.
No, there is no theocracy of Israel.
I mean, no, because I don't think the church is ever like called like the new Israel, or I don't know, to be honest. So here's the thing. In Matthew,
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. That's true.
Yeah, in Matthew 23, Jesus is lamenting over how he would have loved to have gathered Israel, like a hen gathers her. I don't remember the exact verse. Maybe you can pull it up.
Sure. Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
But he says that at the end of Matthew 23, and Matthew 23 is when it's basically after he's finished like absolutely roasting the Pharisees, calling them hypocrites and all this stuff. Like, you guys are hypocrites for their rejection and their legalism. And it says right there, how I would have loved to have gathered the children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and you would not, because they weren't willing to come to faith. But here's what it says: For I say unto you, you shall not see me henceforth, so you shall say, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord, implying that eventually a future generation of Israel is going to say that. They're going to confess Christ, and Jesus is going to return. And I think that Matthew 24 picks up on a lot of the same themes regarding Israel and the trouble that Israel is going to go through. And how ultimately, like, also another thing, the gathering of the elect in Matthew 24, I don't think that refers to like the rapture of the church, like so many people say. I think that it's representative of Israel coming under the Messiah. In fact, there's like a parallel verse, or there's like this other verse, and I think it's Isaiah 11:12. I don't remember. I wrote it in the comment. Yeah, I think it's Isaiah 11:12, where it says, "And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth," which is very similar to what he says in Matthew 24 about gathering his elect from the four winds. And I think that's talking about Israel, not the rapture of the church, like some people say. And if you look at like a lot of Matthew 24, it's very much a Jewish context. It talks about the fig tree, which I think in other scriptures it refers to national Israel. It talks about like running from Jerusalem to the mountains, and better hope that your flight is not on the Sabbath. The Jewish temple, all these things. It's very much a Jewish thing, I believe. Again, it's just my perspective. Like, I know that a lot of people on the stream probably aren't dispensationalists, but it's okay. We can agree to disagree on it.
Yeah, for sure. We don't have to all agree on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do think it's kind of I think it's something we want to settle, though. We want to make sure we figure out this thing and get it right.
Yeah, but it's not like a gospel issue or anything.
Yeah. It's not a salvation issue, I don't think.
And he wants to settle by accusing me of running and lying. Glory to him. Toronto left the reservation. He really thinks you don't have to believe Jesus is God to be saved. And so I don't think it's I knew eventually it would happen eventually, and maybe other free grace people would say that I'm, doing too much by saying that I include Jesus as God in my, I don't really care anymore. I'm fine just debating consistent OSAS. I don't care if it comes down to it, and no one claiming free grace actually lines up with free grace, then it's whatever. I'm sick of it. I really am.
They shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. The outcasts of Israel and the dispersed of Judah.
So look at this pattern. Your friendly hood went after Zane Hodges and Charles Ryrie. Toronto went after GES. Toronto goes beyond GES in certain areas. And so it's like these guys are fringe, man. And, so I'm not, I don't pay attention to Toronto, It was good that he was reaching out to people after Young Don, but if I knew that he was going to turn them into little anti-Semites, meme-making heathens for the in some categories, then I would have rather they find somebody else.
It seems so weird. Like, it's like, I don't know. Who are these people, man? Who are these people? Where are they? Nobody even knows where they are. These people, these Israel people. Israel,
God knows where they're at.
Yeah,
where are they? Who are they? Right? Like, that's weird. It might be the people will say, "Oh, well, God knows who they are," because God knows everything, right? So He could find them and bring them back, but they won't even know who they are themselves. They won't know that they're from Israel or anything, right? So,
see what I'm saying? He knows this stuff, and he's playing like he don't.
I know. We have Daniel Phillip here. Even before the 20th century, people believed in a literal nation that would be formed according to God's promises in Old and New Testaments. I don't know.
Yeah, another thing that I believe is that I do think that things in, like, I know that you're very, like, you have when you talk about like the book of Revelation, like, you often say like, oh, well, we don't know if it's literal or not, or like, I get that there's symbolic things in the book, but I don't think everything in the book is just symbolic. Like, what about like the return of Christ and how Christ is going to destroy everyone with the sword of his mouth? Like, is that symbolic?
I think that's symbolic. I don't think he's going to destroy. I don't think he's going to have a sword coming out of his mouth.
Well, no, I don't think that's
that, right?
Well,
so that's not literal, right? So
no, but like the sword of his mouth, like, it just refers to
his words.
Yeah, his words. Yeah, sure. Like, you could just say the word and everybody's going to die.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Or maybe he's just going to say stuff and they're going to believe or something. Who knows what it is, right? But it's not literal, right? So that's another thing. It's just like nothing in this book is literal. Nothing. People will say, oh, the 12 tribes. What is it? The 12 or the 144,000? That's literal. But even that, man, what is literal about this? What is literal about this? Like, there's going to be 12,000, exactly 12,000 from each tribe.
Yeah, there is going to be exactly 12,000 from each tribe. Well, God can't count. God can't be exact.
there's
they're all
symbolic
virgins.
elements to it, but I think
Mhm.
that a lot of the events they are kind of like going to happen.
Okay, so that's okay. That's okay. That's what everyone says. That's what all the dispensationalists say or whatever, right? But like, this is the thing. So how do you determine what is legit or what is literal and what isn't literal, right? And they're all over the place with that. So some of them will say this is literal.
He says they're all over the place with that, but where's his criteria? That's my issue. Where's his standard?
There's 12,000 people from each tribe. That's literal. So 12,000 male virgins from each of the tribes of Israel are going to be here, and they're going to be doing things.
So did you see how the personality shifted? A while ago when he was talking, he was nodding his head, acting like he agreed and everything. But then you're starting to see he's starting to use these arguments. And that's the issue is he wants to look like he's understanding, like he's processing this information, but he's not really taking in any new information. He's not really wanting to evaluate dispensationalism. He just wants to use his I don't know thing as a way to soften everything he says. But he's making arguments right now. He's the one that lacks confidence in these areas.
Things, okay? But does that make sense? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that's a good
I
point.
feel like
He's trying to manipulate your real truth at this point. You can see it now, and you'll see and that's what he does. He acts I'm going to use this word. I don't have a better word. He acts submissive in certain situations until he has the opportunity to dominate. Okay? That's the general trend that I've seen in how he does things.
I feel like, but I think it's mostly symbolic. But I think there's going to be big things happening in the end times. But that these things are symbols of what is actually literally going to happen.
Yeah.
So when they have, so these 12,000 people, right? Look what's happening here. One thing I always point out. So these 12,000 come, and then what happens? So this is the thing. When John heard this, right? He just heard the angel saying this thing. He cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels. So there was another angel that came down, and there's 4 angels already there, right? And so the angel that came down cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels. And then he says this, saying, "Heard not the earth," and then all this thing. And then John says, "I heard the number of them which were sealed." He heard it. He heard it. Okay. He did not see it. And then when you come down here, 7:9, it says this: "After this I beheld." So he didn't look yet. He just heard it. The whole time he just heard it. And then it says, "After this I beheld." That's when he's looking now. "And lo, a great multitude which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues." So that to me, or the way I've read this in the past, is that this is the church. And so the 144,000 is just representing.
He reads it as a church because he denies pre-trib rapture. Pre-trib rapture is true. This isn't the church. This is just tribulation saints.
The church. So that's why he heard about the 144,000, but then when he turns and looks, he sees the truth. He sees the reality, which is just the church. So the 144,000 represent the church. They're virgins because the church has been purified. We're righteous. We're all those things. So now, the other thing I wanted to point out here is that if you look at chapter 5 now, right? It's the same idea with the "I beheld and lo." So here in chapter 5 now, John is, again, he's weeping because no one can open the book. No one can open the scroll or whatever, right? So he's weeping. And then one of the elders says, "Weep not, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the book and to loose the 7 seals thereof." But he just heard that. He didn't see it yet, right? He heard it from this elder. And then he turns, and then "I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 beasts stood a lamb as it had been slain." So he hears the story about the Lion of the tribe of Judah. But when he turns and looks, and "I beheld, and lo," he sees the reality. The lamb slain, right? The lamb is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, but he heard one thing, and he turned and looked, and he saw another thing. So that's what I think. It's the same thing happening. The same kind of, you know how they'll do that, right? They'll use that kind of repetitive.
Yeah, they use like the sort of language and symbolism, right?
Mm-hmm. So when you see this, like, so here's the story about the lion. Then he turns and looks, "I beheld and lo," and then he sees the lamb. And it's the same thing that happens here in 7:9. He hears about the 144,000, but then after this, "I beheld and lo," and he sees the reality. That's why I think that the reality is the 12,000 or the 144,000 represents this. This is the reality that he saw, which is a great multitude, all nations and kindreds and tongues. That's what I think is happening here. What do you think?
Well, like I said, I'm like learning about this whole issue, so like I'm sort of trying to. Well, I guess I'm like taking a side, looking at different views and stuff like that.
Nothing in this book is literal. When did I say nothing in this book is literal? Did I say that? I think I said that. Or it could be that literally nothing in the book is literal. Nothing, not one thing, right? But I'm not saying nothing's gonna happen. I'm saying that whatever happens, everything in this book is symbolic of what happens. And for people who say, "Oh, that's ridiculous" or whatever, well, what are you saying is literal here? What are you trying to tell? Like, anyway, I'm not trying to be mad at you, right? Some guy in the chat's being ignorant about it, but
yeah,
let me ask
depends
you,
on what you mean by literal, because like I think
That's the thing. Toronto's using the term literal in the wrong way. Number one, and
a lot of these things that happen, it's actually going to happen, but there's symbols that are being used throughout the book to represent these things. So there's that.
And even this thing about the 144,000, right? Like, what's really happening here? So all that's happening is John is having a vision. John is having a vision. The idea that his vision, like, look at all the visions that people had in the Old Testament. They would have a vision, but it wouldn't literally come true. It would be like this thing that's kind of similar, or it's like representing what really happens, right? So for example, Joseph had a dream, or no, sorry, the Pharaoh had a dream about like these cows, and one of the cows was starving, and then it ate the other cows, and so that turned out to be a prophecy about a famine. Okay.
Yeah, Quad, because the law of non-contradiction, we can't use that to eliminate those options, huh?
So the cows aren't, it's not literal, right? It's a symbol of the literal truth, which is a famine. So that's an example right there of a prophecy in the Bible where it's symbolic, and then there's a literal understanding that we were fortunate that Joseph was able to interpret that. But this book is not like that. This book is, we don't have anyone to interpret this book like the way Joseph did, you know? What do you think?
But yeah, unfortunately, we don't. You know, it's probably why this book, the Book of Revelation, is like one of the most.
Was a plague? Look at this guy. Was a plague? Hey, sorry, hold on. Was a plague against Jesus symbolic? Yeah. Listen, Carl. I don't know what you don't understand, or what you're not listening to, or what you're trying to prove.
See, the thing is, when he says, "What do you think?" he don't care what you think. He look the same attitude. Look how he's addressing the audience in this way. He would address you, free real truth, if you were in the audience saying these things too. This is where his real aggression comes out. You know.
Proof. Okay. I never said that all the prophecies are symbolic and they're all. But I never said that. What I said though is that many of them are. Many prophecies are clearly symbolic, and then we see a reality. So, for example, the Joseph prophecy, we saw symbols, and then the reality was a famine, right? So that's not literal, and that's what many prophecies are like that in the Bible. So I don't know why I would accept your view that we're supposed to read Revelation literally. And anyway, if you want to come up here, Carl, or anybody else who thinks they know what they're talking about, go ahead. I guess this live is gonna turn into just like a free for all.
You hear that? Unless to think they know what they're talking about.
Oh, but whatever, it's fine.
But they're going so broad strokes, you can't even narrow things down. And when you do narrow things down, you'll see how indefensible his position is. But right now, he's just playing hopscotch.
I mean, obviously, dispensational is we're going to settle it tonight, you know, but it's very complicated. I don't know. Is this live stream not literal? But anyway, so I'm going to start this stream here. You guys can link up anytime. Any of you guys in the comments, Carl, you always like to stick your nose in here and say all this weird stuff. So come up here. Anglican Crusader, what do you think? It's literally 144,000 virgin Jews. So, okay, prove that. Prove that. Does it say this? Like, it doesn't say this. It's just a vision he's having. Never does this book suggest that all this stuff is going to literally happen. Never once does it even once suggest that. There's nowhere in this text of this book of Revelation, right, where it says this stuff is going to happen.
So is Jesus literally going to come back? Yes or no? Yeah, but he's not going to look exactly like the book. Okay, fine. But is he literally going to come back? Toronto should say yes on that.
Exactly as we said it right here. It never comes up. It's just a bunch of visions that he's having.
Yeah, I think Toronto's toxic.
Why should I think it's all literal? Why? Can you please explain to me? Anyway, I guess they're not gonna come up here. So what are you thinking about? What do you think we can look at next? We got this.
All right. So how about we go to like maybe Matthew 24? You know, because I think we were having a discussion about that earlier.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, okay. Let's say Matthew 24, right? Okay. So Jesus has just finished. He's been upbraiding the Pharisees. Okay, and then now he spent some time weeping over Jerusalem. Well, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest them which are sent to thee. How often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and you would not. Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. That's 70 AD, I guess. Maybe is in your view.
I think it's referring to the temple, because you remember earlier in the Gospels when Jesus said when he kicked out all the money changers in the temple, saying that it was his father's house. You know, but now since they rejected him, he's basically saying, well, it's your temple now. It's not my father's temple because you rejected him.
Okay.
So that's why he's saying your house is left unto you desolate. And I guess it could maybe forewarn the destruction of it. Like it's desolate now. It's not my temple. So yeah.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. That's interesting. For I say unto you, you shall not see me henceforth, till you shall say, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. So under this view, this means when the Jews have come to the point where they're ready to accept him as Jesus or whatever, then he's going to return and they're going to say this. Okay, maybe. Or what if it's just a matter of because he comes back in force, right?
Glory to him. Listen, sometimes loving somebody is leaving them the heck alone. You know, sometimes loving them is giving them their own space and letting God deal with them. So I mean, you know, it's that issue, and it's the same with those other people on Discord. You know, I love to teach and I love to disciple, go through books and all of that stuff, but I don't want the drama. You know, there's better ways wherever I could focus my energy and all of this, and this tribalism attitude and this discord mentality. I don't know what to call it. I'm sick of it. I really am. You know, Discord can be used for positive things if it's moderated and all of that. But we've been dealing with this for years, guys. This is not just a gut level reaction. This has been building for a long time.
Right, with his angel army and all that stuff. The people just feel like, it's kind of like in Philippians 2, right? When it says that all everyone will bow the knee to him, right?
Yeah, every
Or
tongue shall
Isaiah.
confess.
Every tongue shall confess, right? That's from Isaiah 45, I think. But
Could
the
be.
point is that that's going to happen. That is going to happen. Okay, so everyone's going to confess, not because they believe.
Oh, I pray for him, and I pray he prays for me. I already said I shouldn't call him anti-Semitism because I can't prove it, you know. But I can't change the fact I believe it with the core of my being. But if we're going to go by a standard of consistency, then I shouldn't say something I can't prove. But here's the thing: can I prove my salvation? Think of that one, guys. I can say I'm saved, but I can't prove it. Maybe that's my way out. Maybe I say I can't prove you're anti-Semitic, just like I can't prove you're saved. What's your point? I don't know. I'm still conflicted.
Believe in him, but just because he's going to
You're
make
gonna see
them,
him.
you know? Yeah,
You're
yeah.
gonna know, basically.
So this might be something like that. They're going to see it and they're like, oh, wow, it's true. But it's too late now, It's too late for them at that point.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. So I wouldn't say that's necessarily evidence for the dispensationalists, but I get where they're going with that. And then, okay, then he leaves now, right? He leaves the temple. And his disciples came to him for show him the buildings of the temple. And he says, see not all these things.
Yeah.
God bless.
So
So
not
this
be
is where-
left here one
sorry.
stone upon another. Go ahead. And that's
yeah,
so this
that's
actually
what
happened, right?
So this is where I think that Matthew 24, it really picks up on a lot of the same themes of Matthew 23 and the Jews and how they rejected him. And so now he's going to be talking, well, now that you rejected me, and now I'm going to leave. You're not going to see me again until the end. Well, this is what's going to happen.
Could be, yeah.
So
I mean, that would
people
make
like,
sense in the narrative. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. So like people like to play Matthew 24 like for the church, right? And well, he's talking to the disciples, so it has to be the church. Yeah, but here's the thing: the disciples, I think they can also, they're not just representatives of the church, because I think there's a scripture that says they're the cornerstone of the church or something like that, or something. I think it says
Who's the
Jesus is the
cornerstone? Jesus is the
cornerstone.
cornerstone.
Yeah, and they're like the building blocks. I don't remember what it says.
Yeah. They're the one, like
Yeah.
Peter, 1 Peter 2.
But here's the thing: is that the disciples also represent Israel. In fact, that's why there's 12 of them, the 12 tribes of Israel, right?
Okay.
So I
What's
think
the
that a lot of these things he's telling it to the disciples, but a lot of it is Jewish. Like if you read it, the Jewish temple, the fig tree, the abomination of desolation, referring to the prophecies of Daniel, the Jewish prophecies from the Old Testament, and also the whole abomination of the desolations. I don't remember what it was, but I remember I saw somewhere that it refers to like the pagan sacrifices that were done by this guy. I think his name was Antioch.
Mhm.
I don't know if you know about that.
Yeah.
So there was
Yeah,
this guy,
his name's Antiochus. No,
Antiochus the
Epiphanes.
fourth of Epiphanes.
Yeah.
So this guy, what he did is
Antiochus is
basically
like that, yeah,
he did like a bunch of pagan stuff in the temple, and he set up like a picture of Zeus, I think, in the temple.
No, I think what they say is that he slew a swine. He slew a pig on the altar.
Yeah, something like that. And I think that this abomination of desolation, this is something that the Antichrist is going to do. So, so what I believe is that when the Antichrist comes on the scene, the Jews are going to think that he's God, or that he's like Jesus, or that he's like their Messiah. But obviously it's not. It's all just a big deception, right? And he's going to rule in Jerusalem from the rebuilt temple.
Yeah, that's it.
But
Yeah,
at one point, this Antichrist is going to betray them, and he's going to do some kind of pagan sacrifice in the temple.
Maybe.
Something that goes against what the Jews say, against Jewish customs. And I think
Yeah,
that's what the abomination of desolations is. And when the Jews, Jesus is telling the Jews here, he's telling the disciples, but he's really warning Israel corporately during this time. He's telling them, when you see that happen, that's when you got to run, because the Antichrist is going to betray you, and that's when they're going to realize, wait a minute, this guy's not our Messiah. He's a traitor. He's not our Messiah, and that's when the tribulation is going to start for Israel, and things are going to get really bad for them, and eventually, I believe a remnant will be saved. Not every single.
Well,
person
actually, what most people say is that that's at the midpoint, like that thing where the Antichrist goes into the temple. That's halfway through the 7 years.
Yeah, well, my view is that during the first half of the tribulation, Israel's going to have it fine, right? They're going to be on the Antichrist side. They're going to receive the Antichrist. They're going to worship him. They're going to think that he's the Messiah. He's going to do false miracles with the false prophet. They're going to fall for it. But when the abomination of desolation happens, that's the betrayal, right? And I believe that the Jews are very familiar with what this guy Antiochus IV did, because the Antiochus IV, Antiochus, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Okay.
So this guy, he's like a proto Antichrist in a sense. He's like a type of Antichrist. So
if you want to think that way about it, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so when they see that, they're going to be reminded of what Antiochus did, and they're going to be like, this guy's not our Messiah. And I believe this is the point when a lot of Israelites, I think, they start coming to faith, and this is also the point where the Antichrist starts to persecute these Jewish believers, and I believe that there's going to be Jews who still side with the Antichrist, and they're going to persecute these Jewish believers with the Antichrist, because not everyone in Israel is going to come to faith, right? And in Matthew 24, with the parable of the servant, where it said like, my Lord delays his coming, and I'm going to cut him in two and put him with the hypocrites, like that's referring to those people that basically rejected Christ, the people who basically didn't believe, right? The people that are killing the
I know. I actually think this is about, because it says the servant of the Lord, So I think these people are saved, and he's warning them to be vigilant,
Yeah, well, I don't think that the servants are necessarily always saved, because like it's an illustration, right? Like, well, maybe you have a different way of viewing it than I do, but it's like an illustration where it's like, oh yeah, it's a master of a house, and then it's like the servant. So the servants don't necessarily represent saved believers, because I think that every single human being is a servant of God in a sense.
So wait. If that's the case, right? So what's the problem? Like it's not saying
but there's also another view that I have. The other view that I
okay.
have is that the servants could also represent Israel, because they were God's chosen people, right? They had the oracles of God. So in a sense, they were servants of God, but they were unfaithful because they rejected him.
Okay, so
Yeah, and when it says, shall appoint him his portion with the unbelievers or with the hypocrites, I think in Luke 12 it says unbelievers, here it says hypocrites. Well, who did he call hypocrites in the previous chapter? The Pharisees. the evil generation of Jews. So he's basically warning, because Jesus talks about this
Like I
generation.
said,
in
I don't
Matthew
think
24.
I don't know, man. Like when we were talking about Matthew 7, like so then you have to jump. Like so you're trying to say hypocrites. Whenever hypocrites is used, it's referring to unbelievers, right?
Not necessarily. I'm saying it because who did he call hypocrites in literally the previous chapter,
Mhm.
which I think really sets the context. So like obviously Christians can be hypocrites. In fact, I think Christians can be very big hypocrites. You know, like if we're all honest, I think I'm kind of a hypocrite sometimes.
Well, listen,
like,
I'm just saying. Look, I'm just saying. Be careful with these things. Like, don't jump to conclusions. You know, like see how I'll just be like, I don't know what this means. You know, so I'm just trying to figure it out. You know, but I would just say like, don't try to defend positions too much because what do we know? We don't know. Now with these people here in Matthew 23, yeah, he goes after
yeah, he really goes after them. Like he really rebukes them. Like out of like obviously in Matthew 7, he's talking to like I think he's talking to a mixed multitude, but he's mainly a focus on his disciples, and he's basically saying like, hey, don't be hypocrites. But these Pharisees, like look at that. There's even like he's really going in on them, calling them hypocrites. Like these are the people that were rebuked very sorely for their hypocrisy in Matthew 23.
So what do you think that means? That means they're going to hell? Is that what you think that means? Like what if it's like?
Well, I don't believe that these Pharisees were saved. That's
Yeah,
the
okay.
thing.
Let me challenge your views there because of course most people don't believe that, right? So
No, I
anyway,
don't.
Moses is asking this. Upon him his portion with the hypocrites, and it should be reaping. So he
Yeah, well-
still gets a portion, right? That's what Moses is saying. He's still getting
Yeah, he gets a portion in hell probably with all the
I see.
other hypocrites, with the
a lot of
unbelievers.
hypocrites. I see. Okay.
Yeah, and here's
Maybe
another thing,
maybe it's not about that. Hold on a second. Let me just first of all, okay. Let's remember that Matthew 7, when he talks about the hypocrites, that was the disciples, right? Thou hypocrites. So he's talking to the disciples here, right? So we don't need to necessarily assume hypocrite refers to unbelievers. And when you come to Matthew 23, think about it this way: I think you were saying before that you agree that salvation was always by faith alone in the Old Testament and the New
Absolutely.
Testament, right? So okay, so what's their belief? What do they believe? They believe that there's a Messiah that was going to come, right? And there was going to be a resurrection and stuff like that, right? Is that what do you think they believe? I don't know.
Like what do I think the Pharisees believe?
No, the Old Testament people.
Well, the Old Testament people, they didn't know that it was
Let me just skim this. I want
Jesus, but they knew of him.
Let's see.
Yeah, I guess there is no. You got a point.
Traditional way of using that word. Grace. And if by grace then it is no more works.
I'm sorry. I'd rather read a transcript of him. He's just that bad. Wait, there's Quad right there making comments. Yeah, let me look at the other video. I just I don't want my camera on. I'm just not interested in Toronto. Toronto is boring to me. Toronto Bible dispensationalism. And I probably made a mistake. I probably should have responded when he started making the videos against dispensationalism 4 months ago. But I had other debates, other things going on. Let's try this one.
Okay.
My fort
So yeah, I definitely agree with you that I don't think they
Oh gosh, Haruzen's in there. Haruzen is a preterist.
understand Roman. Even now when it's
coming like, you're gonna see me again, all right?
Ramos did see.
I'll tell you what. Let's go to my conversation with him. At least I can get a little bit engaged with that, because I do not want to hear Haruzen. All right. He called it eschatology. Yeah, discussing different views of eschatology. This is what I told him to go study if he wants to debate.
Okay. Freemason.
Let's say I would just start off.
We're just gonna talk some different views of eschatology. But I guess everybody here is a futurist, so I guess maybe we'll just cover futurism today, and then maybe we can cover some other things in the future. But I'm not sure where this discussion is gonna go.
Yeshua is salvation, said send the
Yeah, yeah.
link.
All right. So okay, so what do you guys think about eschatology? You guys are both premillennial, pre-tribulation. futurists, right?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. So, all right. So what's the okay? I don't even know where to start with this. Like, okay, let's start with Matthew 24, shall we?
Yeah.
How about that? All right.
I would prefer if PB goes first every time, at least whenever it's us two. Because if he does, if he gets it, if he says it the way it needs to be said, then I don't need to say anything. So
Good. Sure. All right.
But I would just start off by saying I'm partial preterist for Matthew 24, which just means that I think that there's partial fulfillment in 70 AD and the ultimate fulfillment in the future. So it can go both ways, and a lot of other dispensations are like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think partial. Hi, by the way, Yeshua Salvation, our buddy James here. He's here joining us. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah. So partial preterism is like the most popular view, I would guess, right? Like most people think that he's talking about partially talking about 70 AD and partially talking about the future, right? But with this one, I don't know. Some partial preterists will say that he's talking about the destruction of the temple up to a certain verse here. Let's say verse 9. Some people, right? And then after that, then he's talking about the end of the world. But what do you think about that, PB? How would you break it down?
I mean, it really starts off in like verse 3. Although it says in verse 2, right? See not all these things, verily I say to you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. So again, a lot of partial preterists, they would say that this to a certain point is about Jerusalem.
Because it sounds like certainly it's about the destruction of the temple, right?
Yeah.
But what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say that it is like it's about like a localized view of it with the because of course none of this like Revelation and Matthew 24 doesn't really make sense. I think if you take it as all in the like if you're an amillennialist or even a full preterist, then it doesn't really make sense like what could be correlated, and that's where I think like it ends.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's why I'm kind of a futurist too, but I'm not 100% sure because it's so complicated, it's so difficult to figure it all out. But yeah, I agree that there's certain things in this passage that it's hard to reconcile that with a preterist view, right? Like why does Jesus come with his throne? Did that happen in 70 AD? You know what I mean, or things like that, right? But,
yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that? Or James, are you a futurist too? Or what's your...
Yeah, I think they're talking about. I think it's both in this verse. I think the beginning he's talking about the temple of 70 AD, and then you have to remember. So basically, John came years after the early guys, and then you kind of have to use like Matthew, Mark, and Luke, kind of as like a bridge to Revelations, because you got to figure they came after the early guys. John did. So I definitely think. The early disciples, you got to figure John came years after them. So I definitely think the part of the verse is talking about 70 AD, and then you got to figure this was on the. There was only 4 disciples there that were asking him about this. It was Aaron, John, and I'm drawing a blank who the other 2, and they were asking him about the future basically. So the second half, I believe, is about the future. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. He says. All right. So he says. This go ahead.
Yeah. Because I'm gonna be a jerk and say that I don't think it's referring to 70 AD in Matthew. I mean, maybe it is.
None of it whatsoever.
No, I just mean because everybody's agreeing. Luke 21, I think is more 70 AD focused.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So
yeah.
I'm going to take the argument that Matthew 24 is not talking about 70 AD, but 70 AD does foreshadow it. But I don't think that's what's in view in the passage.
Okay, but what about this thing with the temple, the stones being thrown down? What's that?
Well, the temple is going to be destroyed in the future as well.
Okay, but it says these things, right? Like these stones, these buildings, this temple.
Oh yeah, okay, right here. Yeah, so he asked like 3 questions here, and so it depends how you count them. And some people say he answered them in reverse order, and so that's one of the issues about it. So when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world? Right. So the issue is a lot of times Jesus' teaching is triggered by something that he says, and they ask a question or a certain situation. So back up. Why are they're praising the temple, right? Basically, Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple.
Right.
Why are the disciples showing him the temple, the buildings of the temple?
Right. It seems like they're praising it. Yeah. I mean, I think from Luke we see that. Wait, what does it say? The goodly stones and gifts. So it sounds like. Sounds like they're praising it. Yeah, how beautiful it is, or something like how rich it is. Something.
Herod made it bling. It was lots of stuff going on there. And so the thing is they're proud about it. But why are they telling him? Is this an implication that they're recognizing him as the Messiah? I mean, Matthew 16 has already happened. Thou art Christ, the Son of God. And so he's like, your temple was amazing, or your father's temple was amazing. Look, Israel in her glory. Let's get the kingdom going right now. Right.
Okay. So they're asking him to start it now, and he says, okay, no, this whole temple is going to be destroyed. And then they say, tell us when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of that coming and of the end of the world.
So the issue is he tells them about the destruction of the temple, and so he can talk about the destruction of the temple, which relates to 70 AD, but the end of the world is a separate issue. Right.
This is why, yeah. So this is the thing. So when he says, okay, tell us when shall these things be? So the way I've always read it is like this is about the destruction of the temple, and then this is the further discussion that he's going to have at the end of the thing, right? So then the question is, I mean, I guess in most people's mind, but you may have a different view, Layman, or somebody else. But
well, I want people to get more. So
okay.
I'll chill.
Okay. Well, the question is for me, like, to me, it's like, okay, he's going to answer this question in my mind first, and then the other questions later. So where does he stop answering the first question, and where does he carry on into the other questions?
Well,
one person was here the other day saying that it stopped at verse 9 or verse 10 or something. But go ahead. What were you going to say, PB?
Well, that's the thing. I think that you would have to read up until I think about verse 13 to see like, okay, where exactly is he stopping? And then he's talking about the sign of his coming, because the sign of his coming is a completely separate issue, right? Because I'm pre-trib, I believe that the second coming, when he actually comes with great power and glory, is separate from when he gathers the church, right? And so in that regard, when it goes down into Matthew 24, 29, and 30, that is like that would be the sign of his coming, basically, when the skies are darkened and all that stuff. So
wait, when he gathers the elect, what's this? That's the end of the tribulation. Is that what that is?
Yeah, I would say that's the end.
So who's the elect?
I would just say that that's like believers at that time. I know some people would say like it's Israel, but technically you have to be a believing Israelite to even be one of the elect there. So
yeah. I actually think it's the elect. The elect are the ones who endure unto the end. So it's not just every believer, but it's the ones that who endure, because only they will actually survive. You know, he that endure unto the end shall be saved. So that everyone else who doesn't endure unto the end, they get destroyed. And then these ones are the ones who where was it again? The one about the elect.
Did you say they're the sheep in the judgment, and the sheep and the goats?
Yeah. The sheep. Yeah. The elect of the sheep. Yeah, exactly. The elect of the sheep. Exactly. The sheep and the goats.
Yeah, there's one view of this verse where they say that he's talking to the Jews that will be here in the end times because the Christians have already been raptured, and that's one belief of this verse.
Yeah, for sure. That's a very common belief as well. I mean,
yeah, I don't believe the term elect is referring to the church in that passage. I don't believe it's referring to salvation.
Okay. So you're saying the elect here is the Jews, or
no? I'm saying it's tribulation saints or the sheep during the tribulation, the people that get saved during the tribulation.
Right. So anybody.
So James, you're not pre-trib, is that correct?
I wrestle with it, to be honest. The trib's one of the hardest things to lock down. There's so many passages that could go both ways for trib. I'm right in the middle. I don't really lean either way. I know it's going to happen, but I mean, there's verses that you could say would be pre, and then there's verses like in Revelations that could make it look like it's post. So that's where I am with it. I'm not sure. I'm being 100% on it.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I don't really know 100%, but I do think I'm more sympathetic to pre-trib.
Yeah.
But then some of the arguments I'm not really sure about either, because they tend to think most of the pre-tribbers will argue that it's about the Jews. So the elect are the Jews, and they'll have to go to this section here. In the
I wouldn't say that they're just the Jews, because you see that you got the 144,000, and I do take that number literal, and then you got the great multitude, you know, and then so the remnant of those that survive, like you're saying, would be considered the sheep, because you got to be alive to be a sheep to go into the kingdom, you know.
Yeah. That's the thing about the Matthew 25 thing is there's no dead there. You don't say anything about the dead. You don't say anything about the books being opened or anything like that. It doesn't seem to be the same thing as Revelation 20. So, but he is coming in his glory. He is sitting on his throne of his glory, and the nations are gathered. He shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. So I tend to think that this is some kind of reference to all saved people who actually endure unto the end. They survive, and then they are the sheep.
Well, there's also an important thing to consider there, because I think when Jesus references what you have done to the least of these, my brethren, I would take it as when the Israelites are in the wilderness, because it says in Matthew 24:16 that they're going to flee into the wilderness. When those people are there, they're going to be naked, they're going to be hungry, they're going to be without water, and that's why those specific works are mentioned. Because if the way to endure to the end, so to speak, in this time period, is where you actually help like those Jewish people, Jesus' brethren, so to speak.
Right. That's another thing. Yeah, the brethren, right? The brethren. So many people would say that he's referring to the Jews. So these nations, then, PB, in your opinion, these nations that are gathered, they don't include the Jews. Is that what you're saying, or what do you mean?
Yeah, the word there can also be ethnos. It can be translated Gentiles, right?
Right.
And in Ezekiel 20, it also references a different judgment where if you pass under the rod, then you will enter the kingdom, right? I think it's Ezekiel 20, 33 to 38. It's very important because it's a very similar judgment here for the Jewish nation.
Yeah, and it links to Ezekiel 34 also.
As I live, saith the Lord God, surely with a mighty hand, with a stretched out arm, and with fury poured out, will I rule over you. I will bring you out from the people, I will gather you out of the countries wherein you are scattered, with a mighty hand, with a stretched out arm, and with fury poured out. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there will I plead with you face to face, like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So will I plead with you, saith the Lord God. I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. I will purge out from among you the rebels, and them that transgress against me. I will bring them forth out of the country where they sojourn, and they shall not enter into the land of Israel. And you shall know that I am the Lord. So purge you from among the rebels that transgress against me. So he's only going to save those that are like believing in Jesus. Is that the idea, or what do you think?
Yeah, it would just be like only the believers are going to enter if they transgress against it, because he's going to plead with them, to believe in him, right? And like Jesus says in Matthew 23, I would have gathered you into my arms, but you were not willing. And so that's kind of the idea here.
Okay.
Yeah,
so what's this covenant? That's interesting. What's this covenant?
Yeah, the new covenant.
So they are okay. So the Jews are going to be brought into the new covenant. Is that what you're saying? That's for salvation, or what's the new covenant?
No, they're already saved. They're already saved because they get saved through the two witnesses, the 144,000, whatever like that. And then by that time, they're already believers. And then whenever the kingdom starts, there's a new constitution and there's a new enablement going on. And so that's what that's referring to. So it's sanctification.
Okay.
Okay.
So what is the new covenant in your view?
In my view, I take a very typical approach. I believe that the new covenant spiritual blessings, they can be ministered to the church, but as for like the geopolitical stuff in the land grants in Genesis 12 and 15, those are specifically to the believing Israelites, and that's so that they can receive the full benefits of what the Mosaic covenant promised, but they couldn't keep it, right?
The only other thing that I would add to that is while Israel remains a party of the covenant, Gentiles are the beneficiaries also. So the Gentiles are never a party of the new covenant, but they are beneficiaries.
Mm-hmm. Right. I've heard this idea before. So we don't actually enter into the covenant, but we are beneficiaries of the covenant. And this is like part of the Abrahamic promise. Is that the idea?
Well, as PB said, we're experiencing the spiritual blessings right now of the new covenant because Jesus Christ is a minister in them as high priest, but he's not, in our view, he's not ruling as king yet over the kingdom, and that will be in the future. So, PB said it right.
I think PB is still he's still not finished. He's got to go through that other book, you know.
Okay. So in your view, then the rapture is already taking place by the time this stuff happens, or what?
Yeah, I believe that the church is not in view here. I think this is tribulation saints.
Right.
Yep.
The
There are some pre-trib people that view the rapture in Matthew 24. I don't think it's consistent. Maybe one day I'll get to that, but for right now, I'm just not there yet.
Yeah, I don't see it here either, but yeah, I'm sympathetic to the idea that it's already taken place, because then the people in Matthew 25. This is the thing. The reason why I'm sympathetic to you guys' view, the only real reason is because of Matthew 25, because of these people here. Because it's hard to.
The wise and foolish virgins aren't the church.
Right, the foolish virgins. So who are the foolish virgins in your view?
Oh, I would just people that are not walking in sanctification and prepared of the tribulation saints.
Right.
It's not an issue about who's saved and not saved.
Right. Yeah. So they're tribulation saints. All the virgins are tribulation saints, but some of them are wise.
I just lost my sound.
No, we can hear you. Oh, you can't hear us. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's back. It's back.
Okay. So right. So the virgins here, they're all saved, but they're tribulation saints. Or are they? They're just tribulation saints, whether they're Jews or Gentiles, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as the interpretation is probably Israel, but I think secondary application, it's fine to say that it applies.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, but yeah, there are people who say these are all just Jews, right?
Yeah.
And then what about this one, the other parable here? So these people with the talents,
right?
They're also tribulation saints, and some of them, they're kind of like the foolish virgin. They hid their talents, right?
Yeah. This whole thing is all about preparation. Serve the Lord, invest, be a good steward, because you believe that He's coming and you're going to be given an account, and you have a short time to minister, at least in this capacity, before things change.
Right. So, and what about this? What about this parable at the end of 24? Blessed is that servants. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord makes ruler over his household to give them meat in due season? So, are these people tribulation saints as well?
I think that's more of a general principle. What it's explaining to you is, well, let's look at it. Go to the verse right before that, 44. Therefore, you also be ready, for in such an hour as you think not the Son of Man cometh. So, okay, so he's saying you need to be prepared. You need to be a faithful and wise servant. You know, that's essentially what he's saying.
Mm-hmm. Who's the ye here? Who's the ye? Because obviously he's talking to his disciples, but we're futurists, or we're addressing a futuristic concept here, right? So who's the ye? Who's he talking to here? As
to strict interpretation, yeah, it's the disciples, but the book of Matthew, I believe, was written to the church to explain why the millennial kingdom was not established yet, you know, and so therefore I would say it has secondary application for the audience to understand, look, you're going to be held accountable, you know, and this is in harmony with Old Testament prophecy. A lot of times a prophet will tell something that's going to happen in the future, but the prophet wants them to apply the principles now, because in light of what's going to happen in the future, this is how your conduct should be, you know.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that's a violation, you know, to do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Therefore, be ye also ready, for such an hour as you think not the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant, whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The portion here is the inheritance, right? Like, it's not like they're going to go to hell, but
yeah. Well, PB and I are going to differ on this part, I think. But what I want to say is this: is that some people think, oh, the church has got to go through the tribulation because that's the only way the church is going to be purged and be faithful. No, there's going to be drug use, killing, murder, demonic activity all over the place. And some people, they're going to say, man, you know, they're going to get complacent. You know, they're not going to have all correct doctrine and all that stuff. So this is a description of what can happen while in the midst of waiting for the Lord to return. And it can happen, you know, in the church as well.
I see.
But let's see if PB. No, it's not about the church. But remember, the principle, therefore you also be ready, is being applied to the audience that's written in the church.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, PB, you take this as referring to unbelievers, right?
Actually, in this passage here in Matthew 24, I think it's talking about believers. I even take the same way in Luke 12, because I don't think it's unbelieving, I think it's unfaithful. So, I think it's a similar concept. And I mean, because I think weeping and gnashing of teeth, I think it can apply to believers and unbelievers, right? You can have that regret that you could have had, like, oh man, I was hypocritical, and now I'm gonna feel shame. Something like First John.
Right. Yeah, I agree. But what is
you know how like people say, like people say, oh, I got a tongue lashing last night. It's very like, I mean, Jewish people are very like strong with their language sometimes. So he says cut him asunder, but I mean, he's not going to cut an unbeliever asunder like when he comes down at that point, you know.
Right. You even called it a parable or an illustration, you know. So
what's the portion then?
The Greek word is emeros.
Yeah,
that word is used a lot of times for like inheritance or share. So
yeah, I guess I agree with you guys on most of these things, except I guess the only thing we differ on is, or maybe I don't even know if we differ right now, but I guess I never side so focused on the Jews as some people do, or as you seem to, like. But you may be right. Like, I understand based on Matthew 23 at the end there, how you might say that. Like,
therefore your house is left to you desolate until you say, blessed is the coming name of the Lord. Yeah.
Right. And then also this gathereth, the gathereth is the same word as the gather, when the angels gather the elect. This is the same word, right?
Yeah, I think so. Synagogue.
That's the word that they use for synagogue, right? So it's related to that word, right? So the gathering might be something related to Jews, and we know, or most people would agree that Matthew seems to be written to Jews, right? To like Jewish Christians. So I see where you're going with it. So Matthew's writing this book to explain to them why Jesus came, but the kingdom didn't come. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
This is telling them about that story, right? Okay. I'm trying to figure out, I'm just trying to like, I mean, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate and trying to figure out or look for things that, I need you guys to explain about your theory, So I'm just kind of going through here.
Well, what exact theory is sort of like on the fence? Because I mean, we have a similar view of premillennial, futurist, future fulfillment. So I mean, if it's the pre-trib stuff,
well, he's not a dispensationalist. That's the issue.
Well, maybe I don't know the dispensational thing. The fact that the idea that there's some plan for the Jews in the future. I'm not entirely opposed to that idea. So I guess that
when
means
do you believe that? When do you believe the church came into existence?
I do agree that it's in Acts chapter 2. Okay. Or is that what you would say? Or
yeah, that's my view. So,
but covenant theologians agree with that as well, right? Like I don't think they disagree.
Well, no. Typically, what covenant theologians do is they say that it was the same promise, same savior, and so they basically take the knowledge that we have through progressive revelation and read it into the Old Testament in a lot of places. Right. So,
yeah, that's the idea. Yeah, I don't know.
All right, that's good. I've always kind of skirted that issue with you because I wanted to focus on our common ground and free grace. So, and plus I always want to get sharper and better for that. Comments?
Comments. I forgot about the comments.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so Ditson.
See what I said just now about the dispensationalism thing? I always skirted that issue with you until I get better because I wanted to focus on free grace.
And Ditson here. Let's see what this is like. Smokey, I must not be subbed. How long has this been going on? The new covenant is Christ defeated.
So the reason this has been building, ironically, is because we focused on free grace and didn't deal with the eschatology stuff.
Satan and he is our savior. I don't know. Okay, these comments aren't. They're starting Acts 9. Oh, this guy's like an Acts. What do they call this guy? The Acts 9.
Mid-Acts.
Yeah.
Is he willing to formally debate it?
Yeah, he's in the last one.
Are you willing to formally debate this
position? David Preston is played out, so I need a new Mid-Acts person to debate.
Anyway, okay. So, all right. So what about, let's talk about pre-trib then, man. Because like that's the thing, that's a big thing, right? Where everybody's kind of like saying that, okay, I think most free gracers are futurists.
Yeah.
To some extent, right? But they disagree on this pre-trib rapture business. Okay, that's a big thing that they often disagree. So
I just ordered a book by a free grace person who's just become post-trib. So it's a scholar that I respect. So I'm going to be evaluating all that as well.
Oh, I think I saw some of that. Did you already start on that on your channel?
No.
That's why I was saying I need more time. I got J. Paul Tanner's book on post-trib. I got Alan Kirshner's arguments in his books and stuff I wanted to study out. That way, whenever I debate the issue, I'm not just leaning on pre-trib arguments.
No, that's something that one of the guys that watches my channel wanted me to review.
Well, okay, so this is the thing where they always try to say that this is the same thing as Revelation 6. So, oh wait, not this one. Where's the thing about the moon? All right, yeah, this one. So they try to say that this is the same thing as Matthew 6. So they're trying to say that this is basically, or I don't know what exactly the argument is. The argument is that this is the same as Revelation 6. Oh, sorry, go ahead, PB. You may be able to put me.
PB, you want to deal with it?
So the thing is, right, I think the language of immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, right, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. But you got to understand that just before this, right, if you go up, I think it talks about
not all the way, because when I was reading that book, I was focusing on the historical argument, and I was running the discovering dispensationalism argument notes together, and somewhere I got those notes. But yeah, no, I got it on my shelf. I'll get to it eventually.
A great tribulation, which might be it might be the second half, right? Where is it? But for then shall be great tribulation. So there's like the first half of it, and it's pretty bad, right? I think like a fourth of the world dies. But then you have like the second half of it, and it's actually worse, right? So and after those days, right? And after those days is when the day of the Lord happens, which I would just take that as like the judgment is going to come after that.
Yeah, because what they do is they line it up with Revelation. They say, look, the sun and the moon come dark, and now the coming of Christ. And so they run it across the different passages and stuff. But Revelation is not fully in chronological order. There's parenthetical statements. There's more involved in the structure than just a straight on. This is talking about the tribulation. There's and so that's how I address it. Matthew's not focused on this section right here. He's not focusing on the chronological order. He's just focusing on describing the trends that exist. Now it's true that some of these trends relate to the horsemen and all of that other stuff. But John is trying to be a little bit more meticulous, I think. Most of the time when prophecy is brought up, it's mainly about topic focus. Like, for example, John 5, it's talking about the general judgment. It doesn't go into the details of everything else. Part of that, if you're a dispensationalist, you see, well, the church is a mystery. So people describe it like you just see the peaks of the judgment. You don't see the valley and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, you didn't have to cuss. I don't know if you did that on purpose or what.
and it's one of the reasons why people have a general judgment theory, because they don't see that the church isn't really there. Like the main focus of this is really not to necessarily talk in this section about like, okay, this is what's gonna happen, and then this, and then this. It's really just about like,
Oh, it's crazy because it makes sense. It makes sense both ways. So thanks for clearing that up.
hey, this is what happens, and you can line it up with some other passages in Revelation, but even Revelation has distinctions in its chronological order. It actually breaks up a little bit.
Yeah, because most of the pre-tribbers would say that the church was taken out before we get to chapter 6 in Revelation, right? So they would just say, but then I guess I wish they would come on. They should come on, man, because then we can talk about your view of this.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I'm pretty sure that was the plan from the very beginning. This was a setup so that Dick could come in and drop his post-trib pre-route on people.
But I think a passage that a lot of pre-trib people use is Revelation 3, verse 10. I think it's like one of the most hotly debated ones.
Revelation 3, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the one, right?
And you'll see, Quad, Dick's going to use the arguments just like SFT.
They're saying that
because you have kept the word of my patience, I will keep you from tribulation, which shall fall on all those that dwell on the earth.
Right.
What translation are you reading, PB?
But this is one church.
Well, you forgot the key word. It's the hour of tribulation.
Oh yeah.
Because Ryrie made the argument.
The hour of temptation. But,
yeah.
Is that the same Greek word?
It's the ellipsis. No, perisma. Okay, yeah. So the issue is that Ryrie argued that the only way to be exempt from the hour is if you are removed from the tribulation. It's not the idea of you going through it. He gives the example. He says, let's say I'm giving a test, and I say because you got a certain grade average, you're exempt. You will be kept from the hour of taking the final. Okay, and so that means you don't show up for class, right?
Yeah.
But if you say, usually, I mean, that's how people would take it. But if you say you'll be kept from the test, well, that might mean I still have to go to class, but I don't have to take the test. You know, I still have to endure the class. You know.
Oh yeah.
You know what? For some reason, my comments aren't going through, so I can't send Dick the invite. Dick, can you see the invite at the top of the comments? You go up a bit, see the invite.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
but part of that is the idea, and a lot of post-tribulationists, I mean, they're also covenant theologians because they think Israel is the church in Revelation 7. And so what happens is that they'll say, yeah, you know, the church is going to be kept from wrath. They're going to be sealed, but like they're going to still have to endure it. Like they're still going to be there for the 3.5 years.
But the whole tribulation is described as the wrath of God. It's even like that in the book of Daniel.
Yeah, and that's one of my problems. Like there's really no distinction, but like it's just more wrath. It's not like, okay, this is man's wrath and this is God's wrath. Like no, Jesus sets all the seals, so he's the one doing the judgments.
Right.
PB, have you gone through Andy Woods' rapture series?
I went through a few videos. In fact, I got my 7 pre-trib rapture proofs from him, which is cool.
Wait, let's talk about that. So I was thinking about, because I know Andy Woods and people like that, they'll talk about John 14 as this is the rapture, right? And Matthew 24 has nothing to do with the rapture. Nothing to do with it. It's not even addressing this is addressing. Right?
Yeah. I talked to my peers, people and professors, you know, so far I'm not sold that John 14 is a rapture. It might be better to argue that it's a New Jerusalem.
Or what it is, I think that in the context of this and him talking about like the spiritual truths and the Holy Spirit that's going to dwell them, which is his spirit, it might just be like very figurative language, because the word for mansions there is abodes. So he's saying my father's house are many abodes. And so
the marriage metaphor of building the house.
Yeah.
Right. What's up, Dick?
Yo, can you guys hear me or no?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
So,
I'm on the phone, so.
You've been listening, right? So what are you thinking? What's your thoughts on this?
I didn't listen to the last 2 minutes because I was trying to join, but what were you saying?
But basically, well, now we're just moving to John 14, talking about how some people suggest this is about the rapture, this first 4 verses of John 14.
Oh, where he says I will come receive you?
Right. Receive you unto myself. So, but some people would say this is the New Jerusalem, you know? But what do you think about it?
No, actually, I agree that is about the rapture, but it doesn't say anything about the timing. So I think that reconciles fine with pre-trib and pre-wrath.
But you're not dispensationalist, right?
I think I am in the common sense of the term, but
okay.
Not a hyper-dispensationalist.
I mean, Toronto just brought up, you know, people that are dispensationalists that think that the rapture is in John 14. I don't think that, because if I'm going to be consistent, I don't believe that John, because it's talking about a time underneath the Mosaic law, that the church ever existed. It's a mystery. It could not have been revealed, you know? And so I don't believe that it's talking about it in 14.
Okay, even if it doesn't, I don't think John 14 is like the primary rapture proof text. It doesn't say anything to prove your position. So.
Right.
No, that's true. But the thing that they like about it is because there's no real prophecies about Jesus coming and receiving someone unto himself. It's more like he comes onto the earth and takes over, basically, right? So that's why they suggest this is not about.
Like, well, receiving you to myself could refer to the Bema, because in the pre-trib view, that's going on during that time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they would probably say too. Like,
is it dekomai right there? Receive? I mean, welcome if it's dekomai. No, paralabano.
But why do you think it's post-trib? What do you think?
And you know, watching this video, it grieves me because Toronto's acting on his best behavior in this video, and it shows the potential of what we could have, like in interactions and stuff. But if the guy is just going to go after dispensationalism every single moment, I don't think we're compatible. I really don't. And even SFT doesn't go after dispensationalism all the time. He allows people to come on it and everything like that. So I feel like the moment that he went after dispensationalism, we got to part ways. I just don't see any way to do this. And GS won't do certain mission activity with other free gracers that don't hold to their doctrine. And I just got to recognize that in some situations, free grace anti-dispensationalists are not compatible to fellowship with. And so it is what it is. It means I'm an enemy to him. I don't think that we're compatible doctrinally and all that. So I don't know what's going to happen.
What's your position called?
Pre-wrath.
Pre-wrath. All right. So tell us about that. Why do you think that's the case?
Okay, I think the main one is that every single pre-trib proof that people bring up usually actually is a proof for the pre-wrath as well. Like basically the pre-trib doesn't have a lot of exclusive proof text. That's what I've noticed.
Agreed.
So then under that view, there's an additional proof for the pre-wrath, which is that Revelation 6-7 view that I gave you, along with Matthew 24, which is really strong in my opinion. That's the strongest proof text. And that's basically what opened my eyes to the pre-wrath rapture. I was like,
well, right. You're not a dispensationalist, so that makes sense.
What do you mean?
Because in my view, Matthew 24 is not talking about the church.
Yeah,
so, and neither do I think Revelation 6 is talking about the church.
How does that have to do with my being dispensational or not?
Because according to dispensationalism, the church doesn't exist underneath the law, and so it can't be talking about that.
Is that like
it's not revealed?
Is dispensationalism like a monolith view? Because I understand there's a distinction between Israel and the church, and that some truths, some promises are still granted towards the Jewish people, but I don't take that view. So.
No, you're asking a good question, and it comes down to understanding about the mystery. So there are some people that believe that you got progressive dispensationalists. They would say the mystery was mentioned but not realized, and then you got Acts 2 dispensationalists, typically like Ryrie and others. They would say, oh, it didn't even exist at all. It was a mystery based on 1 Corinthians 3 and Colossians 1. And then you got your hyper or ultra dispensationalists or mid-Acts. They would say the mystery didn't begin until Paul. So either Acts 9 or forward.
Okay, so what does that have to do with the rapture?
Well, if the church is what's raptured, if the church is the mystery, then if the church doesn't exist and if it's not talked about, then you can't make a comparison to it.
That's kind of like an inductive line of reasoning. It's not really.
Well, of course it's inductive. It's called inductive Bible study.
Wait. Don't go there, please.
Y'all was thinking of that recording, right?
Yeah, according to who? According to the inductive study Bible.
Wait. Let's ask this. Okay, according to you, this like lines up perfectly with Revelation 6, right? So let's say that's correct.
Yeah.
Why does that imply that the rapture takes place after this or something? Or what is your argument about the rapture regarding this?
So firstly, in the beginning of Matthew 24, I think from verses 1 to 29, we see all these events, these precursory events, bad things are happening basically. We see the same thing, just assume for the sake of argument, in Revelation 6. The first 6 seals have the exact same phenomenon, like the sun turning dark, stars falling to the earth, war, pestilence, etc. That happens. And then in Revelation 7, we see an innumerable multitude of people just spawn in heaven, whereas in Matthew 24, we also see him gathering the elect after that event. So they perfectly align in their chronology,
You're saying this is the when these people appear in heaven, that this is the rapture. Okay.
So you think the rapture happens before the opening of the 6th seal?
No, after the 6th.
Okay, so
seal, I think after the sun turns dark, basically, that's what happens. Okay. It must happen after the abomination of desolation, like 2 Thessalonians 2 says. And when the 8th seal is released in Revelation 8, or the 7th seal, that's when the wrath begins. Because the seals represent like the unleashing. When the last seal is loose, that's when the wrath begins. That's what it's supposed to figuratively represent, right?
Okay.
That's where we always lean more towards, right there.
Interesting. I do agree that these people are the church, this great multitude. But I've always thought of it as this is like representing, actually these 12 tribes represent, or the 144,000 represents the church. You know, that's the way I think of it. But
like figuratively, you mean?
Yeah. Like there's no literal 144,000 Jews. It's like he hears about the church from the angel, right? The angel starts telling him about these churches, or they're just announcing it, right? And it says, and after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude. So when he says that, right, that's when he turns and looks. He actually sees the thing. So up until then, he's just been hearing about these 12,000, and then when he turns and looks, then he sees the reality. And it's just like in Revelation 5, when he's being told about the Lion of the tribe of Judah, and then it says, and I beheld. And
that's the same argument that he was using earlier. But here's the problem. Does every single vision follow that pattern? I heard, then I looked. It that seems sketchy right there. I'd have to look into it, but just off the glance, it's like, well, why are you only showing 2 places in the book of Revelation where it does it? Why aren't you showing that every time there's a vision?
Then lo, it's the same kind of the same wording, right? And then he sees the reality. It's not a lion, it's a lamb. It's a lamb that's been slain, So that's he hears about one thing, then he turns and looks, and he sees the reality. So then in Matthew 7, so in Revelation 7, then he hears about the 144,000, he turns and looks, and he sees the church.
Okay, so each of the tribes represent people of all nations, is what you're saying? Because that would be
just basically not that each tribe represents a nation, but just that the tribes. You know what I mean, right? So it's just like a representation. What do you guys think about that?
Like in terms of the 144,000 being a representation, and then you see, and then well, okay. The thing about it is, if you actually look at Revelation 7 and the actual tribes mentioned, right? I like you can go up to the top, right? It says of the tribe of what is it? It starts off in verse
Judah.
4 of the tribe of Judah, of the tribe of Reuben, of the tribe of Gad, of the tribe of Asher, of the tribe of Naphtali, of the tribe of Manasseh, of the tribe of Simeon, of the tribe of Levi. That's very significant because technically speaking, originally it was 12 tribes and one of them was Dan, right? And we see that in Genesis 25:29. And so really, and so with Levi, the point of Levi was that they were kind of meant to be scattered, but now they're meant to get their full inheritance, right? It's actually fulfillment of the Old Testament. So this is actually very specific in how it's worded. It's not just, I don't think it's talking about the church here because it's very precise in what it wants to communicate, that because the Levitical tribe has been replaced by the Melchizedek priesthood, they can now get their full share of the inheritance in the land. Right.
But then why doesn't Dan get their inheritance? What about Ephraim and Manasseh? What about
well, because Levi in this passage replaces Dan, right? And it's meant to
them. So doesn't Dan get an inheritance? Why don't they get an inheritance? Yeah.
Some people think the Antichrist will come from
Dan.
Dan.
Well, either way, this doesn't prove the chronology of the rapture. Either way, this supports what I'm saying. Whether you think it's symbolic or literal, it just represents the church being raptured at this point.
Yeah, actually, I think 1 Corinthians 15:50-54 kind of lines up with what he's saying too, about how talks that will be changed after the basically the last trumpet.
I view that as a millennial rapture.
You know what's interesting? The Bible has quantified some very large numbers. Even in Revelation 5, it quantifies 100 million angels, and I think after Revelation 7 or 8, it quantifies like 200 million something. So you can assume that there are more than that amount of people that appear in heaven. That's a lot of people that appear at once. You know,
it's a multitude without number. Right?
Yeah, but by the time you get to the midpoint of the tribulation, half the population is cut. So if you had a lot of believers that got saved during the tribulation, then you already know half the population is cut. So that explains why there could be a lot of people there as well.
Well, so remember that the rapture also includes those that are dead that get resurrected. But in this view, they all appear at one instance. It's not like they're appearing progressively.
Yeah, I don't think this is the rapture. I think that it's describing those who died during the tribulation. A great multitude dies during the tribulation. Like I said, the population of the earth is cut in half. So if the rapture happened right now, that's 4 billion people. Of course, not all of them are believers, but let's just say that out of those 4 billion people, let's take a a generous number. Let's say 1 billion of those are people that are believers.
1 billion are believers. It's not really a narrow path, but I'll grant you the number.
The narrow path about discipleship. Regardless of that, it's experiential.
Also, I think there's context to suggest that these people are literally bodily resurrected because it says they're clothed in white robes. Unless you think that's figurative as well. But
no, they get resurrected. You're right.
Yeah, so that's the rapture. That's when people get bodily resurrected.
No, the rapture is part of the resurrection, but it's not just the resurrection. Old Testament saints are going to be resurrected later on. The rest of the dead didn't live until after the 1,000 years. You got other statements like that. Furthermore, you said this was in heaven and they're clothed in white, which means they don't necessarily have to have glorified bodies at that time, but they could be rewarded at that time. And so the robes could relate to the rewards because it says earlier in the book that the robes are the righteous acts of the saints.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it symbolizes the righteous acts of the saints. Not literally. Like how can robes be literally righteous acts?
Not literally. Yeah, 100%. But okay. Let's say this is the rapture, right? So let's imagine that's the rapture. The sun shall be darkened, the moon, sun, man in heaven. So what is this? What is this then? If that's the rapture, so then so you're saying right at the time of the rapture,
the wrath begins.
And then Jesus, it seems like Jesus is coming right now, right? Like at the time.
Well, in your view, who populates the millennial kingdom?
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know why that's such a pressing or pertinent question for this.
Well, because it takes literal interpretation. Are people going to have babies and children? Is there going to be are non-glorified bodies?
Where's that in the Bible?
Wait. It's
in the Old Testament.
I know. I hear what you're saying. That's an important question, but let's just try to figure out on this chronology of Matthew 24. If this right, so the sun will be dark and the moon will not give her light. So the rapture is going to happen a little bit after this, right? But then Jesus comes now, right, with this throne. Oh, so okay. So why does Jesus come with this throne?
What do you mean he comes with this throne?
He comes with this throne of glory, doesn't he? At this point.
In which verse?
Hang on.
Okay, I think I explained it in the past. The second coming of Christ isn't just one momentary event. Just like his first coming, it encompasses an array of events. I think it starts at the rapture and it ends at Armageddon and the judgment, the great white throne.
So Dick believes in a yo-yo. You're up, then you're down.
What do you mean?
Well, you get raptured at the end of the tribulation, but yet you come back down with Christ.
Yeah, that's what it says. He comes with his saints.
How much time from the time that you're taken up in your view, and when he comes back down? How much time?
It should be approximately 3 years because you get raptured towards the midway point a little bit afterwards.
Okay, so you're mid-trib.
That's what the pre-wrath position is. It's not precisely mid-trib, but it's around that point.
Okay, all right. So what theologian best articulates your view? You say you did study, right?
I'm not too well read on eschatology.
Yeah, no, I just wondered.
Pastor Stephen Anderson.
Okay, but I thought he was post-trib pre-wrath.
He is. That's what it is.
That's what he's describing.
But that's not how SFT views it.
I agree with SFT. I think he does view it the same. Does he not?
No, he don't.
Much of his stuff,
and that's why I asked you. SFT doesn't believe that there's going to be people repopulating on the earth.
Okay, what does this have to do with proving the timing of the rapture?
Because if you remove all believers, right, then that means nobody can have sex.
Again, look, this is an inductive line of reasoning that operates under the presupposition that people will have to do that. Now, I don't know about that. I don't know. Where's that in scripture?
No, I understand you don't know that.
No, but wait, Layman, because he's pre-wrath, right? So during the wrath period, there could be people who get saved. And then during that period, then those people would be the sheep at Matthew 25. And then they would be able to have children in the millennium. Yeah?
When did they get removed?
They don't get removed. They just survive the tribulation. They survive it. And they're
okay. All right. Yeah, you're right. That's a better, but that's not the same view as SFT.
Well, again, proving that doesn't prove the timing of the rapture. That's a completely separate line of
reasoning.
I
know. I just want to make sure I understand that you're basically arguing for mid-trib rapture.
Yeah,
you're not arguing for post-trib pre-wrath. That's a different position.
Okay, post-trib, the tribulation period goes by different terms depending on which view you take. In pre-trib, the tribulation is in reference to the whole Daniel 70th week. In pre-wrath, the tribulation is just the first 3.5 years.
Yeah, I know. So you could even argue that you're pre-trib if you argue that way. I understand that argument, but
no, that's not true.
He's not pre-trib. He's pre-wrath.
Yeah, it is true. Let me tell you why. The word tribulation doesn't refer necessarily to the whole 7 years. Some people make the distinction between the Great Tribulation as being the last 3.5.
Yeah. I agree with that.
That's what he's saying. Yeah, that's what he's saying.
So you could say you're pre-Great Trib, and it's another way to say pre-wrath.
Yeah, sure. And I think this is one of the better proofs for pre-wrath is defining the wrath. Like, when does the wrath begin? If you define that from Scripture, then you get the timing of the rapture.
Okay, so let's go. When does the wrath begin?
I think one of the arguments is in Revelation 6, where it says one of the saints that are slain, they say, "How long, Lord, until you avenge our blood on earth?" That suggests that the Lord wasn't responsible for the first 6 seals and the destruction thereof, right?
Then who said the horses?
It's the devil, it's the Antichrist. It's his
No,
destruction.
come on, man. Come on.
That
bro.
one-
And who allows the devil to do that?
Yeah, God's permitting, but it doesn't mean he's actionably engaging his wrath on the world.
But the
That would be like
restrainer
saying-
is not removed till when?
What is the restrainer?
Wait. Hold on. Let's look at these four horsemen. They seem to be from God, man. They don't seem to be from the devil.
What is
Especially
the
The
in Zechariah
lamb opens the
4.
seals. Yeah, we'll go there in a second. But the lamb opens the seals, and then the 4 horsemen come, right? And then God is commanding them, right? Or the beasts, or somebody commands them. The beast commands them, right?
Yeah, I don't think God's commanding or God sanctions. He allows the wrath to occur, and the seals represent his allowance of that. But it's not him. It's not his wrath like it is after chapter 8.
Well, wait. Hold on a second. Because
An
Jesus is the one opening
intensification
the
of
seals.
wrath doesn't mean it doesn't wrath before. People start
It's not only
dying
that-
when the
it's not
seals
only that, it's the
are
fact
being opened.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that Jesus is the one opening the seals, right? That's the thing about it.
Yeah, the
So
seals.
Yeah, and when
I think
an
the seals are
emperor
literal. I think they're literal.
when an emperor
Okay.
opened the seal, that means that he's executing the contents of what's in there. You know.
Yeah.
So
Well, go to
you
verse,
pop one
go to
seal, a
verse-
little bit gets released. You pop another, it's unfolding.
scroll down then. Go to verse
I think
12.
what they're saying is God won't actually like be controlling the Antichrist and like all of his actions and all that.
Yeah, go down to the verse where it says, "How long, Lord, until you avenge?" Because I think that's important.
Verse 7, 1 and 2.
No, 6. It's chapter 6. It's before verse 12.
Just type in how long. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a backup.
Oh, 6 10.
Verse 10. Verse 10 says,
Oh yeah.
Well, I wouldn't call it a debate.
There's.
So the people are basically saying, "How long, Lord, until you avenge our blood? How long until you avenge what happened on earth?" Which means God isn't responsible. Otherwise, why would they be looking for him to avenge what happened to them? Doesn't make sense.
Because during
Yeah,
the time, God allows Satan to rule on the earth. Okay, God allows persecution of believers during that time, right? And so we're not even persecution that happens today. We're not blaming it on God, but we recognize that Satan is not bound.
Now look at now.
So
remember
wait,
what happened
are you saying all these people here are killed in the seal judgments?
Yeah.
All these people here. All right. So none of them are from like before, right? None of them are from like today.
What do you mean today? No. This
People are
is,
killed today for this, right?
yeah, that's a
for
future
testimony.
time period. That's not.
Yeah,
that's
I
not
agree.
considered.
No, but so okay. So everybody in this section is people who were killed during the seal judgments. Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
correct. Now go to chapter 8 and contrast the tribulation that occurred here with what God incurs as his wrath. It's completely different. It's like him creating natural phenomenon, and you can see it's described to him. And you actually see the word wrath occur like 8 times, where it didn't occur before. I think like the end of chapter 6, which is interesting.
That's because during that particular time, it's the wrath on those that take the mark of the beast. So you have the general wrath that allows Satan to do his thing through the Antichrist in 2 different phases, as a man of peace and declaring war, and then the people get the mark of the beast, and then those people get targeted. So God targets those people with the mark of the beast. That's why the word wrath starts occurring in that way.
But the mark of the
Why
beast
do
doesn't happen until chapter 13, right? That's the thing. Why are we?
I think chapter 13 isn't chapter 13 a reiteration of the first 6 seals? I think it restates them in a different
Yeah,
story.
sometimes people say that about it. I'm not
Yeah, there's
sure.
different views about that.
I'm not
So
sure.
is that the view? Yeah, I know.
The view I was taught was it's telescopic, but there are parenthetical statements. So in other words, the seven seals, the 7th seal becomes the seven trumpets. The 7th trumpet becomes the 7th bowls. And so, but you do have parenthetical statements like the woman, the child, the dragon. You know, those things, those type of things to give backgrounds to the characters.
So it's retelling the same thing again and again. Is that the idea? Some people say that. Yeah, I've heard that.
Well,
Or is that what you're saying?
I don't think that. No, I don't. I think it's an intensification because the target is different. There's a difference
I see.
between people that are living during when the Antichrist first comes to rule, and you have opportunity, but the mark is not being offered. But then once the mark is being offered, God takes that to the next level,
Okay.
and He starts raining down specific forms of wrath on those people who took the mark.
Yeah, and I think with the mark thing, right? Because when someone takes the mark, that means there's like no chance for that, basically. I mean, it's sad, but the reality is that those people, they permanently have the wrath of God upon them, and so it's highlighted and it's heightened, and that's why it's kind of brought out in Revelation 13 and 14 that if you take that mark, you will be cast into the lake of fire.
Yeah, believers can experience wrath. You're right. I'd have to look into that.
I don't know. To me, it's like that's why I think of it sometimes as being like symbolic or something, because that sounds like a works-based salvation to me. You know,
Well,
whosoever receives the mark. Go ahead.
Well, Constables doesn't explain it, but he says that believers can take the mark, but they're still saved.
Yeah, Antonio told me the same thing. He's like, if we didn't get raptured and we were here, you're already saved, so you can take it. It's like,
Yeah, I don't buy that. But there's an idea that God will take them home before they take the mark if they try to.
that's why I asked him. He said no, that if we were still here, a Christian could physically take it and still be saved. I was like, wow. Well,
I don't know. That sounds weird to me.
It could be
But-
the case. It could be the case that at this point, like the supernatural is unveiled and everyone realizes that God is real and whatnot. But the people that are believers, obviously, they wouldn't sacrifice like their position in Christ to take the mark of the beast if they realize all the stuff is going on. Like they'd rather just die than have money for food.
Yeah,
But
sure.
maybe so I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of stuff going on, but
Now you're going to have believers that are carnal during the tribulation also, so they're going to be shooting up with heroin and robbing and pillaging and killing.
Yeah, and when people are faced with death, you never know what decision they make in that moment. So I see what you're saying.
that's definitely possible. I can discount that, but
I just look at the things going around the world right now and see where it's going for almost a market of the beast type system with all the currency and digital stuff and all the microchips and Elon Musk Neuralink and all that stuff come to it. I just see all the stuff play out in the world right now.
All those amillennialists I'm trying to convince the premillennialists. Now, I mean, there's actually a really good and persuasive amillennialist that I talk to sometimes, and he has other little disciples, and they already knows. But like, he now he doesn't have answers for everything. But I mean, at this point, it's like it's just him and what he believes, and I got my premillennialism, and we're just kind of on two completely opposite sides.
wait, who is on the opposite side?
Well, like, it's the amillennialists in the server. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess this is like very complicated and
No, it's eschatology. It's almost as confusing as like in the first century when they tried to like determine when the Messiah was going to come and line it up with Daniel's 70 weeks. I mean, it's confusing.
Well, my plan when I start formally debating this is dealing with the all meal, post meal, pre meal stuff first. Deal with all of them, and then once those views are dealt with, then go into more about the timing of the rapture and things like that.
Everybody will know about the Lamb because the unsaved will decide to wage war against him. Revelation.
I was making clear right now my intentions about doing the debates in a certain order and stuff, so that I could get better at those things.
1714. So I think it will be much more revealed than it is now. So everyone will know about the Lamb. So therefore, the mark thing, I don't know. It still seems like a works-based salvation to me. I understand if they know about it, they know the supernatural things are happening, so they're kind of like, because everything's in the open, right?
Yeah.
Still, I mean, taking the mark still would be a work. Not taking it is a work.
Well, let's. I've done this before. Let's drive people crazy. All right, so go to the passage about the mark of the beast.
It's this one.
All right.
This
So
one
I'm gonna make the argument. I don't believe this. I'm gonna make the argument that believers can take the mark and they're still eternally secure. Disprove it.
Believers
can
take
take
mark,
the
they're
mark?
still secure.
Yeah.
Well, it says that they're all going to be they're all going to be tormented.
It says the smoke of their torment, right? The smoke of their torment is going to last forever. That means the consequences are going to last. It didn't say they're going to go to hell.
Well, I don't know if I would look at. I don't know if I would argue from that route. I would say that's kind of like a.
I know. This is just a thought exercise.
Yeah, but let me argue on your behalf even better. I would say
All
just like all liars end up in hell, those that take the mark of the beast, their default is to end up in hell. But you know that believers are justified from all things, so they wouldn't end up in hell under that view.
And the people that are called liars were ones that never believed the gospel, and therefore
Right,
it's
right.
not
It wouldn't
describing. It's describing their state after they're dead. It's not a statement about living people.
Yeah.
Well, I think in
Yeah.
Ephesians and doesn't in Ephesians say all that commit these things or in Galatians as well?
No,
They
it depends how you
can
take inheritance.
Inherit. But
Dr. Gene Kim to argue and cause strife. The topic of the stream, the main topic is, well, to summarize, I basically had to come to the conclusion that I don't have grounds to call Toronto anti-Semitic, even though I believe he's anti-Semitic. Okay? That's where the stream started.
I mean, I agree that the inherit there is positional, but it's saying even in Ephesians and Galatians, it's saying that once you get saved, you're not one of those people. You're not them, you know?
Exactly.
So it's like, oh, so I see what you're saying. So these people here who take the mark, they're not going to be counted among those mark taking people because they're saved. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I'm saying that's a line of argument, but I don't think it's that convincing because this is only one event. It's only one thing. You take it once, and it's outlining that the people that take it end up in hell. It's not like
Yeah, so here it says those who take the mark or worship its image. So
Is it or and? I
both.
think it's and. You have to do both.
Or, it's one.
Worship the beast and receive his mark in his forehead.
Yeah. So this could be a line of argument, but you know that could be perceived as
Yeah, this is more like a therapeutic stream because me and Axel got into it because he's defending Toronto, and so yeah, I decided to do this stream, even though I'm extremely low energy. One day I'll debate preterism, contact SFT.
the works-based salvation because what if you're a believer and you want to worship the beast? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the thing. I don't see how you can escape the notion that this is works-based salvation, and so that's why I think it's symbolic. But go ahead.
Well, one way people have argued about it is that because it's going to be a time of extreme demonic activity, things are going to become more evident. In other words, you'll actually be able to tangibly know where people are lined up spiritually because of what it's going to be like. I mean, we're talking about a time that's never been like this on earth, where Satan and his demons are let out, you know, or not let out, but unrestrained.
Yeah.
And so it's for a person to show a little bit of kindness during a time when the world's gone crazy, probably is a great indicator that you're a believer, you know.
Also, I would say, when does this occur? Like, when does the mark of the beast occur during the 7-year period? That makes a big difference.
The 3.5 mark.
Does it say
that's
that?
when the man is sin reveals himself.
Yeah, but it doesn't say that's when he makes people take the mark.
No, it doesn't. And also,
You might be right. You might be right.
Yeah. Also, it says that he'll be revealed before he appears. You know, so it's like I don't know if the revealed thing is the same thing as when he actually appears.
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, that is a possibility. Some people believe that the revealing idea means that there's going to be people that in the tribulation are going to know who the Antichrist is before he does that. Like,
yeah, and that's an argument for the pre-wrath. Is in Daniel 9. It says that he does the abomination of desolation 3.5 weeks, or 3.5 weeks through the 7-week period. So that's midway through. That's when you see the abomination of desolation, and then after that, in 2 Thessalonians 2, is when Christ comes for his saints. That's when he's the day of Christ.
Well, that's what we're saying though. That's what we're saying. Is the revealed thing the same thing as this thing in Daniel 9?
Yeah, I would say it is. If you cross-reference with 2 Thessalonians 2, that's when the day of Christ occurs after that.
Yeah, I know. The day of Christ occurs after the reveal, after he's revealed. But the question is whether revealed is the same thing as standing in the holy place.
or is it the same thing as a departure? Because is it departure, the rapture? Is it a rebellion and apostasy? Yeah.
And there's also a whole side who think the mark of the beast isn't going to be a microchip at all. There's a whole belief system that thinks it's the symbol for Islam, and that has to do with Islam. There's all kinds of views on it.
Yeah, I
They
don't
wear
pretend. I
They wear
don't
the sword
pretend
and
to
that
know
symbol on
what
their head. Yeah, so they wear that symbol on their head, and it translates into 666, basically, how they have their symbol, and they wear it on their head and their arm.
Yeah, I think that's an extremely weak argument.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand there's all kinds of arguments for each verse.
Yeah, there are those theories about it. Yeah, there are those theories, but we should just stick with the text. I think for now, anyway. And like, all I'm saying is that mark of the beast thing seems like works-based salvation. So, and there's other things in the whole book of Revelation. Why would we take that book serious, like literally like that? It doesn't. To me, it's like, how could you possibly consider this to be literal? You know what I mean? It seems like it's entirely symbolic.
Well, the opposite of literal is not symbolic or figurative. The opposite of literal is allegorical interpretation. Remember, there's direct literal and indirect literal. Direct literal is contractual language. Indirect literal includes figurative speech. This is a letter. It's prophecy, and there are good indicators whenever you're dealing with figurative language.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on a second. Go ahead. Yeah.
I've heard a good argument from Stephen Anderson, which says to interpret everything as literal unless it's obviously figurative, which is how we deal with people in real life. Like I wouldn't interpret all of your words as figurative; that'd be annoying. So if it's clearly metaphor, then interpret it that way. But if it's not, then you err on the side of caution and say it's literal. Like Revelation clearly has literal parts, right? Clearly.
Yeah, that's why we
clearly.
Well, not 100% of it.
Clearly. I mean, I think clearly. Okay, clearly, John was standing on the island of Patmos and he saw Jesus. That's literal. Okay. After that, I don't know how much in this book can be clearly seen as literal. I don't know about that, bro.
I'll give you some examples, right? Jesus says, "I am he that liveth and was dead, and liveth forevermore." That's literal. In Revelation 20, it talks about the New Jerusalem. I will say that is also literal, most likely.
All right. Let's look at that. Revelation 20. So he's talking about. I mean, this is him having a vision, right? This is him having a vision. Oh, sorry. We're 21. Sorry, yeah, my bad. Yeah. So he's having a vision. I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and he just saw the old heaven and the old earth flee away from the throne, right? And now he sees a new heaven and a new earth.
Of being God's people, representatives, keep that in mind. And then it's talking about the natural branches. They're natural in the sense that they are more cultivated. They are better suited for the role of being God's administrators, right? Which is why he says that when they're brought back in their wholeness, it'll be blessing and riches for the world, right? How much more? And he says, "For I would not, brethren." So the "for" is an explanation of the previous verse. "For I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery." What's the mystery? "Lest you should be wise your own conceits." Conceits in what? Conceits that Israel is not going to be brought back in. That blindness is in part, not in full, because obviously, right, clearly the believers are still getting saved. But that blindness is in part happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles comes in. This is the only time where fullness of the Gentiles, because this is a mystery not revealed before. Now, of course, Matthew 13 talks about a mystery of the kingdom. That's the inter-Advent age. But the inter-Advent age includes the fullness of the Gentiles. That's talking about when the last Gentile gets saved, right? That's a time period in between the first coming and the second coming. And it says, "And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob." The salvation here is not positional salvation, because they're already saved by the time, right? They got to call upon the name of the Lord to believe in Christ. No, they got to believe in Christ to call upon the name of the Lord, and that's how he's going to come back, according to Joel 2 and Isaiah 59.
So do you think this is not about the 1,044,000?
Nope, because 1,044 is going to preach to the world, and they're going to preach also specifically to the Jewish people. It's talking about in the wilderness. So this goes deep into eschatology. But the point is that in the wilderness, they're going to be provided for and cared for, and they're going to believe in the Messiah, and they're going to mourn, like in Zechariah 12. However, right, they're going to be persecuted by the Antichrist because they're going to be fled into the wilderness. And when they call upon the name of the Lord, Christ will physically come back and destroy the Antichrist, according to Revelation 19, 2 Thessalonians 2, etc.
This is about all of them.
It's probably, at that time, probably all of them. Like at the end of the tribulation, right? But not all of them before then will be, positionally saved. That's what I'd say. But there will be a very large amount of them saved. So that's the point.
Remember the time change. We're going to lose an hour of sleep. Saying.
Oh, dang, man. Well, not a big deal for me.
Be okay.
Yeah, so you got any more questions, Rick?
No.
All right. "For this is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sin." Every other covenant has already been enacted except the new covenant, at least in my view. So when he says, "This is my covenant unto them," about the new covenant when he forgives their sins and pours the Spirit and
my bad.
when the stars fall.
False prophecy.
Sorry about that.
But no, I'm saying if it wasn't written by John the Apostle, then it doesn't belong.
It doesn't matter who it's written by.
No, it's written by
It
John.
does
It's
matter
written by
because
John.
if
No, dude, come on, man.
it's going under a
Come on.
false name, wouldn't you agree?
Well,
Well, I just wanna show-
okay. So wait.
I just want to show where my concern is. You don't have to.
All right,
agree with me.
yeah. So that's what I was going to ask you. Yeah. So what do you think in this book of Revelation doesn't line up with John, or what are you saying?
So if you look at the end of Revelation 6, that's where Jesus says the rapture supposedly would happen at the same time as the second coming. That's where he says the stars will fall and they will see the Son of Man.
But how do you know Matthew is not false prophecy?
Well, I'm just telling you. That
You're just assuming. You're assuming certain things, and then you're going to throw John underneath the bus.
Wait. Let's hear him out. I disagree strongly, but let's hear him out. So what's your thing about this? So you're saying, okay, this is just like Matthew 24,
right?
And then
it's exactly like Matthew 24, except in Matthew 24, after what happened after the stars fall and the all that, they see the Son of Man. You know, it says after the tribulation of those days, the sun shall be dark and the moon shall not give its light, and then they, will see the Son of Man, and that's where you then have the rapture. And that's also, it aligns with Paul that same way. He says that, people assume that the wrath is talking about, the tribulation, but that's not true. If you look at the wrath, we're not appointed to wrath because we're not appointed to the judgments that happen after.
So you're assuming pre-trib is not true.
No, I'm not assuming anything. I'm just telling you the problem seems to be that the book of Revelation seems to create a bunch of confusion because it has the second coming seemingly at the end of chapter 19, but it also has all this information in between which doesn't fit an actual timeline because it's at the end of Revelation 6. Listen. At the end of
okay, hold on. I want to see this part. Where's this part in Matthew?
At the same, right. That's where Jesus says he comes again. But then Revelation 7 through 19 seem to add, or through the middle, through the first half of 19, seem to be just adding a bunch of information that confuses the issue. It doesn't actually fit.
He
the timeline.
confuses
That's
you.
the problem.
He confuses you. If God's word confuses you, you don't call it God's word. Well, all you got to do is formally debate me. Take a position and we can formally debate it.
Everyone's discussing this because the confusion is coming probably from Revelation.
I'm not going to choose Justin's words over God's words.
Yeah, this is the thing, Justin.
You don't know that it's God's word.
Hold on, Justin. Hold on. Let's just pause for a second. Justin, I understand that you have this view, right? But the rest of us here, we just believe that everything in the Bible is true, and we're trying to work it out. So that's what we're trying to figure out. But if you're going to come with this other idea that, okay, well, if it doesn't line up, then it must be that this part's wrong or something. We don't have that option. We don't think like that. We don't have that theoretical.
But what do you do if it doesn't line up? Like what's the?
We kick Justin out the chat.
Oh, come on! Why can't you just have a civilized conversation with me?
Wait. Justin, the reason is that, I mean, we don't necessarily assume that it doesn't line up just because there's some things we don't get. We're trying to search it out, figure out what it means, But you're taking this other view, which is that, okay, this appears to not line up, therefore I'm going to reject this part of the Bible. That's not something we don't. That's not an option for us. We don't do that. You know what I mean? So that's why.
Justin, your words don't line up.
What I don't understand is how can there be a whole ladder? So seemingly, according to Jesus, the end of the suffering or the tribulation ends with Revelation, with what is copied in Revelation 6. But Revelation says that it has a lot more suffering that comes after that.
Do you believe that Jesus said those things in Matthew 24? Yes or no?
Yes. But I don't know if this is Jesus in Revelation.
Hold on, guys.
It could be another Jesus.
I'm a bit slow. Guys, I'm a bit slow. Is he saying Revelation is not inspired?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's what he's saying.
I'm not saying.
This is the thing. Justin, listen. I respect you as a brother, and I love you. But it may be that if you're gonna continue to pursue this line of reasoning, it may be that you're not helpful to this discussion because none of us agree that that's an option. That is simply not an option for us. When we think about the Bible, You understand?
I understand that, but what if it has to be an option? Is more my question.
No.
What if Justin's not a human?
No, but Justin, I was gonna say, do you believe that Revelation is inspired by God?
I don't think
so.
He's not
sure. He's not 100% sure.
I don't know.
Look,
how would I know?
We don't take that route when we don't have an understanding of Scripture. We don't just say, "Oh, I don't know what this means. It's very cryptic, therefore it's not Scripture."
No, I've studied it more than any other book.
Justin has studied a lot of things. Justin has gone from free grace, dogmatic in certain positions, into apostasy, and he has psychological issues as well.
I get it. He studied. I'm not disputing whether he studied. I'm saying he just doesn't understand Revelation. He even said that himself. He says he can't make two heads of how that part after chapter 6 reconciles with the events in Matthew 24.
Yeah, but
if I give you the reason, then you'll say, well, we can't consider that option. But you don't actually answer my question. So why not answer my question instead of just?
What's your question?
So if the end of if according to Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21, that the Son of Man comes when the stars are falling, and all the cosmic signs that happen at the end of Revelation 6, right? So
I'll answer it. Okay. Matthew 24. Matthew 24 is not chronological. It's topical. Move on.
Hold on. What's the question again?
So if it happens at the end of Revelation 6, and then to me it seems clear that the seals come before the trumpets come before the vials, and the vials are said to be the last 7 plagues of God. Now, if that's the case, then it has the 3.5 years happening after they have already happened. You see what I'm saying? Like it says that it also has a 5-month period of scorpions and a bunch of stuff that's in between the second coming and another second coming in Revelation 19. So it doesn't make any sense.
Let me propose this to you first.
Do you understand what I'm getting at, Toronto, at least?
I understand.
I get what you're saying.
I'm gonna roll out. God bless.
I don't know if we necessarily. Oh, you're gonna leave, Charles? Hold on a second.
Hold on a second.
Anyway,
I'm not interested in that discussion. I respect your channel, but I'm not interested in that discussion.
Yeah, it is kind of. Well, hold on a second, because it is true. Like,
Justin, Charles, I'm human too, believe it or not, and
you are human. But what if you're not human?
Well, all I'm trying to get at is, I have my own struggles. And
I understand that.
Dismiss them and throw me out like a piece of tissue is just
whatever, dude. We've unblocked you and given you multiple chances on my channel, and you do the same behaviors. There's certain neurotic things that you do that we can't help you. You have to go get medical attention for those things. We can't help you in that.
Isn't going to solve my theological issues.
Justin.
It might.
Let me give you an explanation, Justin.
Okay, go.
I give him a plausible explanation.
Yeah,
In Matthew 24, the second coming of Christ, what we describe as the second coming, is not just one momentary event. Like his first coming encompassed the whole array of events, including his birth, his earthly ministry, his death, resurrection, all of that. Likewise, his second coming is the same. The rapture is the beginning of his second coming. It concludes with his judgment of all the nations in the great white throne. That's a very simple explanation.
Then you still have to deal with, if you're saying the rapture is not in Matthew 24, right?
Justin,
Rapture,
just become pre-wrath and don't deny the word of God.
I was pre-wrath, but I realized there was a problem even with pre-wrath.
And what's that?
Did you prove that to SOT?
SFT doesn't talk to me. He says I'm a reprobate. But
what's the problem?
The problem is that if you read into Revelation 7, that's where they'll say the rapture happens. But the problem is that the second they'll say that the rapture is happening there because they see the stars falling in Matthew 24, right? And they see the second coming. But see, Jesus doesn't come back until Revelation 19 in the book of Revelation. So how can he come back in Revelation 7 and Revelation 19?
Recapitulation. I don't even agree with that view, but that's one plausible answer. It's recapitulation. It's a recap.
Wait.
Yeah, but
Hold on.
It doesn't work because the trumpets have to come after the seals if you just read it. And
Is my mic not working?
Wait.
Yeah, your mic's working.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dude, I just explained to you the beginning of the second coming. The second coming is not one instantaneous event. The beginning of the second coming of Christ is his rapture, and it concludes towards the end of it is Armageddon when he comes to make war with his nations. That's Revelation 19. So you're thinking of the second coming as one instantaneous event. So when you see one, when he gathers the church in Revelation 7, you see that as a different coming, and now there's a third coming in Revelation 19. That's not true. It's the same second coming of Christ. One is the day of Christ, and one is Armageddon. It's the same second coming of Christ. It's not a problem.
Hold on. So then after this thing, so after this, the Son of Man appears in heaven. Is this the rapture? Is that what you're saying?
Matthew 24, yes, that's the rapture when he gathers.
Okay. And then the actual Matthew 25, that's Matthew 19. Is that what you're saying? Matthew 25 here at the end.
I don't know if Matthew 25 has anything to do with Armageddon, but it does describe the end judgment, which is after Armageddon, is it not?
Oh, so you're saying this is the same as Revelation 20? This is
Let me tell you what the problem with that situation is that you still have Jesus coming back. Because I used to take that exact view. I had my own view on it, and the problem is that you still have Jesus coming back in the clouds before that we're raptured. So he's coming back in the clouds, and then we're raptured. And it says go scroll up in Matthew 24.
You meet him in the clouds. How's that a problem?
Right. Well, because it's happening at the same time as what happens seemingly in Revelation 19, but also seemingly in Revelation 6.
How do you gather that?
What? Well, because let me read it. One second. Let me pull it up on my screen. It says, so if you look at all of the occurrences, right?
What are you reading?
Yeah, I'll read out of the King James. I know you like.
What are you reading? What are you reading?
I'm looking for it. It's in Matthew 24. I'm just looking for where it says. Let's see here, verse 29, or also verse 28 as well is important, but also verse 27 at that. For as the lightning cometh out of the east and shines unto the west, even so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. And right before that, it's talking about don't believe any secret ideas of a coming of Christ. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. So that's you get in Revelation 19.
What?
Now
that's how you're building your theology there?
No. I'm saying it matches the language of Revelation 19 with the birds feeding on the carcasses, and you can get that also in Luke, the end of Luke 17, if you don't think that's talking about that. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun shall be darkened, the moon shall not give its light, and the stars and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then so notice the sign of the Son of Man happens before he gathers all the elect. It says, and he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather his elect from the four winds. So this is all happening. He descends, and it's the same thing he says in Thessalonians. He says, "For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, and the voice of an archangel, and the trump of God. The dead in Christ shall rise first." So it's the same language.
But this doesn't say anything about dead people.
Right, but I assume that it's talking about the same thing because it says it's chosen.
It doesn't. I don't see any problem there. I think you just sound confused to me. That's what it sounds like.
The problem is that this is happening in Revelation 6 and in Revelation 19 somehow.
Is this your first encounter with Justin?
No, I don't think so. I think we talked a long time ago.
Okay. All right.
So how do you see what I'm getting at, Toronto? How can Revelation 6, which is the sixth seal, right? It's the sixth seal. And
if you believe that,
right? If you read it literally, it seems clear that the last seven plagues. I mean, it literally says it, the last seven plagues are the seven vials, which happened.
I can't tolerate Justin anymore. I think I'm gonna end it right there, guys. Y'all can find this stream on his channel. So, in conclusion, I guess even though I do believe that Toronto's anti-Semitic, I can't prove it. But even though I believe Toronto's saved, I can't prove it. So, I don't know. I don't know what to do about this. All I know is that he's toxic and it's unhealthy what he's doing on Discord and the example that he's laying out for these other guys, you know? And it grieves me. And of course, someone's going to find something to use against me, but I'm just tired. I'm exhausted. I'm weary. I love to teach the word. I love to disciple a few people. I don't like this, the political side of it, I guess you could call it. I don't know. Y'all pray for me. God bless, guys. Check out more content, old stuff and new. Thank y'all. Hey, Jace.